Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to a member of the She-Wolves. She is the one and only Molly Spartan. Molly, what's going on?
Not much. We are still in lockdown here in Scotland, which is getting tiresome, but hopefully changes on the horizon, and hopefully we got news that the fingers crossed in Scotland by the end of July, every adult should have their first dose of the vaccine, which is cool. But yeah, apart from the world being on fire, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad. I mean, it's the crazy thing, right? And this is also kind of the reason why this podcast has existed, is because I just kind of wanted to check in on friends and then hopefully, potentially, make some new ones like we are doing right now. But it's just also trying to figure out, okay, what are you doing on the other side of the country? What are you doing on the other side of the world? What the heck? What is this person doing? Blah, blah, blah. Because we don't know. This is unprecedented.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, especially here, because the UK isn't just, like, the UK isn't a country, essentially. It's a union. So Scotland deals with it different to England, and Wales is dealing with it different to Northern Ireland. And so we're all in sort of various different stages of what is going on. But no, I feel confident in the Scottish Parliament. So I'm confident in that sense. I'm just, yeah, I'm very confident being in Scotland. I think if I was further south, I'd be a bit more worried.
Oh, so essentially what you're saying is you kind of sympathize for us here in the States, huh?
Oh god, well, like, yeah, but like you've got rid of your tangerine. We're like down south is still dealing with a guy with strange blonde, kind of wiggly looking hair.
What is that?
And a strange complexion. But
what
yours
is the Boris Johnson?
You got yours rid of, and you're kind of starting to, like, you've kind of been stuck in first gear for a while. You've managed to move it into second, so you're gonna start getting somewhere. But yeah, I'm okay. I'm in Scotland. I'm happy. I'm all right. Like, we're dealing with things. It could be better. Could be a lot worse. I'm not saying we're New Zealand, because nobody's New Zealand.
No, but New Zealand, right?
Yeah, but we're not in the worst state.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, Kelly Robinson, just wolf emojis all over the place. Shout out to you, Kelly. Yeah, Sandy Smith saying, "Yay, friendo!" Shout out to you, Sandy. And Joe Rice is literally tagging people left and right. Thank you, Joe. He's like, Steve McKenna. And Joe Rice is like, "Hi, Molly."
Hi, Joe.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, it's weird here. Well, at least you know, yes, there's the Boris Johnson and whatever he does, right? And then, but like, we got the new person, and then, like, literally before his walk from where a riot started, literally 2 weeks before, to the White House, like, his vice president was like, "Oh, you're not getting your checks that we promised like 2 weeks ago, so good luck with that." So, yeah, man.
It is what it is. It is. We all knew he was going to have a hard start, because you can't, like, he's literally walked into, like, the worst mess could possibly happen. Like, you thought previous presidents had a mess to tidy up, and then this one, oh lordy, like, Kamala Harris. Like, I'm so glad he's got her, 'cause she just looks like a woman that walks in and is like, fix this, sort this, don't muck about, get it done. And I'm like, yes, that's what we need. In case he decides to play with his dog again and break his other foot.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that because like one of the last concerts that my wife and I went to was Phil Collins, where he 2 weeks before the date he breaks his foot, and not to say that his back wasn't already jacked, and that's why he went on his self-imposed retirement and what have you. But like I'm kind of like, like, oh, don't break your feet, dude.
I
Don't.
kind of want him to get in one of those, those like inflatable like orb suits you
Yeah,
get for like a game. Put him in one of those, and you put a wee window just to let you bounce his ass stuff, and he's fine.
yeah. Which I gotta ask, right? Because you're like you built up, you literally put over Kamala Harris, right? So,
Yeah.
assuming, right, that she wrestled, right? Because Abraham Lincoln was a wrestler, like
Mm-hmm.
that is facts, right? So, if Molly Spartan could pick Kamala Harris's A, entrance music,
Oh,
B, special move, what would such things be?
I feel like right. I don't know why, but I feel like she'd just have like a mighty backhand. Like I feel like she's just like I've got a good backhand, but I think if we were to face each other, it'd be backhand versus backhand. Just something simple, nothing too complex, no high flying stuff. Again, a woman that just gets in, gets the business done, a swift backhand, and you're back to behaving yourself.
There you
Um,
go.
oh, see, I think about entrance music for people too much. Like, as in, like, I get really nitty gritty to why so and so has that. Hmm, what would come?
Dun,
I
dun,
mean,
dun, 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 dun. No, I was singing the Jeopardy theme.
yeah, I mean, depending how long, if she might end up being president, she might have to. What's the march?
I think that the Hail to the Chief,
Yeah,
that gimmick. Yeah,
like
yeah.
surely if she becomes president, that's her music. She's already got theme music. It's
I,
like you get a borrowed 4 year minimum theme music when you become president. That I mean, how like I feel that's very American. Like you get an important job and you're given theme music.
yeah, no, 100%. You get
Heroes
the
get it, presidents get it. Like it seems wrestlers, it's a thing.
yeah, you get the theme music. You get the Twitter. You get
Yeah.
the fancy
On the
plane
world,
and car.
take on
Just
the world, you get the theme music. It all comes as a package.
yes, no. One would even say the total package. I'm
Oh
doing
dear,
like the yes, yeah.
no.
It's wrestling in the brain. They say. No, Kelly says Sandy asks wants to know how good is the lemon cake.
I
So there's
hate,
a backstory. So set it up for us, and then how good is the lemon cake?
Sandy brings up. No, lemon cake is awful. Why would you make no?
What?
Because lemon cake's bad. No, we
Really?
yeah, like so. Sandy's a photographer here in Scotland, and I did like a Seven Sins set of photos with him. And for gluttony, I basically just shoved cake in my face, and we'd got cake. Which weirdly, there's a photo. So the end of the photo is me with a donut in my hand, sort of looking up to the sky. Sells really well in Germany for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why, but Germans love that photo. The last place me and Casey wrestled before like lockdown happened was in Germany, and I sold that photo really well that day. No idea why. And when I asked one guy, I went, "Why is this one selling really well here?" He was like, "You just look really blissful with that donut." And I was like, "Hey, you know what? Sometimes you can be just happy having a donut." But yeah, I hate lemon cake. Sandy always brings that up at any given opportunity for some reason. Even in interviews that I'm doing with John Wilson, so thanks, Sandy. Thanks. Like I don't know why. Any given opportunity, he will bring up the wedding cake.
Which
No, the lemon cake. He even brought it up at my wedding.
Well, what's weird about it? Well, that particular 8x10 or whatever the centimeters conversion is over there.
Yeah,
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 okay, cool. But I kind of think that's kind of floating around the Reaper Bond. right? Like that's in the red light district of like people are just kind of hanging around with that, assuming that Germany is kind of back to normal, which whatever. But like maybe that's why. I don't know.
I have no idea. I mean, it was the players that we were wrestling. So me and Casey, we wrestled each other. It was at 10 a.m. in this nightclub, right? It was for this German festival. Like, it was a wrestling German festival, but it was in different venues. So 10 a.m. we wrestled, and I had a McDonald's on the other side. And I jokingly said to the people driving, like, "Oh, I wonder if the chicken nuggets are different here, because they are different in America compared to the UK." And when I finished my match, I went up to Merch, and they had a box of 20 chicken nuggets ready for me. And they're like, "This is for you." And I was like, "I'm coming back." And then I was like eating chicken nuggets and selling photos of me eating a donut, and then occasionally giving someone a chicken nugget. It was great. It was great. Wrestle Cult, they're called, German promotion. And it was great. They bought me chicken nuggets for after my match. I was like, this is the place.
I mean, I think that's going to be in the Marley Spartan international writer list, because I mean we hear of rock bands that have like, oh, I only want like green M&Ms and all that gimmick and whatever. So I think that'll be the running joke. I mean, it's funny that we were mentioning cake earlier, because Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias, right? He says he loves cakes. So every stop in the tour that is, people bring him cake, which I think is great.
Like, yeah, like there's been times. So not only do I wrestle, I work for a company called Inside the Ropes. They recently produced a wrestling magazine that seems to be doing really well. They sell in Barnes and Noble, sells in America, sells in Barnes and Noble, etc. But I've worked for them for years. I basically organise all their merchandise from tours and stuff. And I've been on tour with guys like Edge, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Folk, like all these guys, and it's really, really cool. But I remember I was really, really ill on the Bret Hart tour, to a point where, like, we were in a place called Cork Island, and I fell asleep behind the merch table while Bret was on the stage. And like, there were photos of people taking photos of me passed out on the floor with like a ball of orange juice in my hand. I was so painfully ill, like to a point where everybody was like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" And I was like, no, I'm not okay. So I tweeted out going, because we were going to Manchester, and I was like, "Everybody be nice to me, I'm not feeling well." And folk genuinely showed up with orange juice. Galaxy chocolate is like a chocolate here in the UK, which is like, just to clarify, American chocolate is rubbish. Just straight
Facts.
up. Facts. Your chocolate has what they put in your chocolate to make sure it stays, it doesn't go off soon enough, is the same chemical compound that's found in vomit.
Yeah, no,
and that's why it's like all we say. But British chocolate is like so much. But guys, if you're in a British aisle in your supermarket and there's chocolate, buy the British chocolate. It's just so much better. But they show up with my favourite chocolate, and they even showed up with like a boy showed up with this bag, and it had single pop figures, because I'm an avid toy collector. And I mean, like, my living room is ridiculous. Like, ridiculous. I have all the papas. I have all the metallic. I have so this room, I hand painted this to look like the Toy Story
room. Yes.
So there's a wee Toy Story shelf there. This is a clock my dad fixed up. And inside of it, it has Pierre Capaldi as the Doctor, so it's like a Doctor Who clock.
Whoa.
That there is like an old Spawn More vehicle for like the 90s. So this is literally a Star toy room, but my living room is stupid. I love it. Like, my house is a house where you walk in and just go, oh my god, there's so much to look at. My stairs is covered in like bits of art and photos for like places we've gone or people we've met and seen, and then you walk through like the hall, and I've got a mirror that I made that's got like I've covered in like comic books and then clip outs of old Raw magazines, so it's got like Goldust is Sable on it, and Austin in the corner giving the finger, and yeah, I'm very proud of it. I made it myself. And then you get into our living room. Oh dear Lord! Like the front wall comes out, and it's just pop figures, and then there's a television in the middle of it. And then our back one, we've got like special cases that have like special things in them. So like, when me and Wolfie first got together, he went on a trip with his mum and dad to America, and he got a pop figure of me made, and he took photos of me. They went on Route 66. He took little mini Molly with him to take photos of her on Route 66. So that's in there, and then there's like a ghost goblet that Casey got me for my wedding, so I had a cool cup to drink out of. There's all this stuff, and then I've got like all the pops of people that I've met that I've got signed, and yeah. So like, but my living room's a bit like, oh dear Lord, but like, and it's us. It's very us. Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I mean, my poor wife, I literally took a quarter of my living room, our living room, and turned it into the studio apartment, but not in Chicago, Illinois. But yeah, and then the quarantine got weird and whatever, and I was like, when people were talking about getting PS5 versus Xbox Ones and everything like that for literally a quarter of the price on Facebook Marketplace, I got a. What is it? I bought a sauna. I bought a sauna. Why? I
Yeah,
don't know. But
100%. I think your microphone. Oh, there we go. I thought your microphone had come out.
Oh no, yeah, no. The sauna
Yeah.
was a weird one, but I mean, yeah, and then
Oh,
I
we'd have a like if we could have a sauna, we would have a sauna. Like we're definitely those kinds of people.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I decided I was going to turn. We had this spare sort of space that just had stuff in it, and then we jokingly was like, "Oh, we should turn that room into like a spare room." And I was like, "What if we turn it into the Toy Story room?" And Wolfie's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." But you can't tell is that the clouds have glitter in the clouds, so when the lights on and the sun's in, they sparkle. Yeah, I'm that kind of person.
That's fucking dope. You're my kind of people. Me too. Which, I mean, Neil Hutton says, Mrs. Wolfie, yeah, man, shout out. And then my MMA superfan actually asks, he wants to know your thoughts on Joanne Calderwood, who's of Scottish descent, and does she have a chance of winning the flyweight gold in the UFC, in your opinion?
Of course she does. She's
Mhm.
Scottish.
Yeah.
Do you understand Scottish? The Scottish, right? Let's put it this way: the Scottish were the people that the Romans were scared of, so much so they ran away from them and built a wall to stop them coming over, and that the Vikings wanted to be friends with. So they like there's still traditions that are like very like Viking-esque. There's like boat burnings and that in the Isle of Skye and Shetland, stuff like that. Like that's just how the Scottish are. So yeah, of course Jojo has a chance. Like nobody thought she had a chance the last time at Fight Island, and she owned that. So yeah, the girl's on a high. She's just gonna keep going. She's still very sweet and adorable. Like she like when she talks, you're like, oh little Jojo, and then she gets in the ring, and you're like, oh little Jojo.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course she does. Like 100%. There's I actually had a friend who was at he's from Dubai, and he was at the fight, and he was
Wow.
just screaming like he's just he's like he's one of those guys. Although like he is Indian but moved to Dubai, and I think he's pretty much learned all his English through television. So he's got this kind of American accent. And Assad, I love him, like Assad. I mean, I don't love him. Ooh, Assad. Like, bring him up. But he, no, because if I say his name, he'll watch this and he'll get a pop and he'll be like, you like me. No.
Gotta keep it strong. Kayfabe always. I'm just saying.
But he was there and he was just shouting like, Jojo, trying to do his best Scottish accent, and then like sending messages when obviously when McGregor lost, like was the best was just him going like, I can't believe just what happened, like just what just happened, Louise? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, sorry. But yeah, no, it was yeah, of course she has a chance. She's Scottish. Like, no Scottish person is going to turn their back on somebody else Scottish. You could be the worst person there fighting, but if you're Scottish, there'll still be Scottish people there supporting you. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, which I gotta ask, in terms of your involvement in pro wrestling, because I mean, we were having some fun off air before we actually went live, and I mean, your family is all involved in wrestling. Your husband is a NXT UK Tag Team Champion, which, I mean, for my money, right? Like that is, and this is not a disparagement to any other WWE brand or any other company, but like what I'm watching week to week is like the New Japan stuff, and not because it was cool. I hated those like, oh, I just like New Japan, blah blah. But the New Japan stuff on yeah, the English, I mean the English translated stuff, and NXT UK, and for my money, right? And I have this kind of theory on championships, right? Because you can't have a gaudy championship, you can't have a crap-looking title, because again, this is the centerpiece of your promotion, and if your title is trash, well, guess what? What does that say to your audience? Whether that be in MMA or pro wrestling, it's universal. Oh, there you go, universal. Well, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit, but I digress. So you have to have an amazing looking title, because again, you are combatants that are competing for the right to hold this said title. And to me, the NXT UK titles are the best, like from top to bottom, from Walter's NXT UK championship to the tag titles to the women's champion. They just look, I mean, again, I kind of want, like, if you're the champion of such thing, when you have people walking into your house, obviously pre-COVID or after this whole thing ends, and like, what's that? Well, that is the champion. Well, it looks beautiful. That is essentially what you want, right? And
I mean, if you think about it, the UK titles look royal. And it's all sort of, and it's deliberate, of course, but they are the best looking titles because they look like championships. They look like, and what I also like is that they're gold. So for me, I've always got a thing where it's been it's a little thing, and it doesn't really bother me, and I don't go in big huffs, but I've always nitpicked that. I've always thought there's so many women's titles out there that are silver, and it really annoys me. Just a little bit. Like, it's just a personal thing, and I'm not going to be like, I'm not holding that. Of course, somebody gives you a title, it's an honour, and it's a privilege, and things like that, and you understand that it's to do with them trusting you, etc. But I've always been like, why can't the women's title not be gold as well? Because the whole thing is about you're chasing the gold. Mm-hmm. You're after the gold. And gold is first. Silver is second. So wrap it with that, right? And it's always been a wee personal thing. And I kind of understand why, like, maybe tag titles would be silver because there's two of them and things like that. Like when you think about it, I get very nitpicky, but it's just a thing about me. But yeah, no, the titles are beautiful. Also, I feel like, I know people were going on about like, oh, it's because of COVID and stuff. But look at it this way. Walter's just surpassed Pete Dunne's title reign, which massive. So the NXT title has only been in 3 people's hands since the start of the tournament.
Yes.
Kaylee Ray has just become the longest reigning women's champion in WWE history in the last 35 years. Mm-hmm. And if we just delete the Fabulous Moolah, she'd be the longest. And the Gallus are the longest reigning WWE tag champions of all time. Right? Because there's a weird, like, and I feel like people were talking about how the IWGP, yeah. IWGP. I say letters wrong all the time. I've got this thing where, like, people know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about, but I say it wrong. Like, I remember in a conversation, my mates genuinely crying of laughter because for some reason I said his name, Rob Van Dam. I was like, Rob Van Dam, and they were like, no, and I was like, that's wrong. Like, but they knew who I was talking about. But so it comes out of my mouth wrong sometimes. But yeah, like, they were talking about how I think they've only had, like, is it like, it's something to do with like 8 people have held it, or like in the last decade and stuff like how prestigious it is. I was like, well, does that not qualify for this? Technically, this is the most prestigious title in WWE right now because it's not being. It's like when when those titles change hands, it will really mean something. It'll mean that there's a change in the game. There's going to be a new direction for a whole host of people or an individual, and that's the exciting thing. Like, if you think, like, I was at Cardiff when Kaylee took the title of Tony, and my lord, I was the only person that was happy in that section, and I was the most Scottish I think I've ever been in my life. Like, I was just like sitting there quite happy, and it went 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, "Got yourself in!" Like, just like. Yeah, oh man, I was going off my nut, and there's actually a photo of me on my Instagram of me. I took a selfie of myself grinning from ear to ear with this very annoyed bunch of people around me, and I'm like, "I get off you, like that's my pal," and like I was just delighted, and because like I don't care what anybody says, we're all marks, and wrestlers in particular are all the biggest marks out of all us all, because if you think about it, we're the fannies that have went and learned how to do it. That's how much we love wrestling. So when you get the ones that are just like, I'm like, no, like, you're a bigger mark than they are out there. So when I actually get a chance to like go and watch it, I'm there going, go on, yes, and like, but I do have to sometimes explain things to people like, why are they doing that? Oh, it's because of this. They did that, hit that. Okay. But yeah, like I just remember being in a like a block of seating with very annoyed people, and me just being like, yes, like. So it means something because when Tony lost the title, it was that like, oh my god, Tony's lost the title, like they didn't, and the fact that like the people around me were surprised and they were astonished, but moments later they truly believed Tyler was going to get that title back off Walter.
Yeah,
and it was a great pay-per-view when Mark Andrews and Flash took the tag titles. It was massive. Like, so I'm going to tell you a story, right?
Please do.
At that show, a couple of days later, on Twitter, we discovered that Lin-Manuel Miranda was at Over Cardiff, right? He tweeted out a video of him celebrating Flash and Andrews winning the tag titles, right? So my poor husband got a very angry message going, what is this? Because I am a massive Hamilton fan, have been before. Like, I was that before I went this. Wolfie's seen Hamilton for the first time live in London when I was like, we went to London to see it. So that was the first time he experienced it. But he'd had me just going like singing in the kitchen and like proper like heartfelt singing Burn in the shower, and he was just like, this is this thing she really likes, and nobody really got it. And I'm going, Lin-Manuel Miranda was at that show. I was in the same building. What the like? What? And he starts going, I didn't know. And luckily for him, none of the wrestlers knew a clue like that he was there. So it wasn't until like I remember I was sitting with Kaylee, and I remember saying to her like, the thing is, like, I'm not jealous. Like, I'm genuinely like So for me, I think the emotion of jealousy is stupid, right? That's so strange. I find it very like it destroys people when it's unnecessary. For me, if you're jealous of somebody, it's because you believe that you should be in that position and not them. Where like all of my friends who are very talented wrestlers are in the position they should be. Kaylee Ray should be holding the women's championship because she's one of the best wrestlers to ever come out the UK. And I can proudly say she's a dear friend of mine, but she's that good. Piper Niven is also one of the best wrestlers to come out of Scotland. Like, these are people and they are exactly where they should be. They should be working for companies these big. That these big? I don't think that's right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
These
we'll go
big.
with you.
I good with words me. But like as big as they should be working for them because they are that good, and I don't feel jealous regarding that. And I was like, I don't feel jealous that you work for WWE. I don't feel jealous that you've done these tours in Japan. I don't feel jealous of you that you're holding a WWE champion. I am jealous at the fact you got to wrestle for Manuel Miranda. That I'm jealous of. That I'm jealous of. Other things don't mind. You got to wrestle for Manuel Miranda. That I'm jealous of. The thing is, at the time I told her the first time, she didn't understand. She was like, "Okay, okay, Molly, come, okay, Spartan." Then she watched Hamilton after we made her watch it. She is now obsessed. Her and Stevie Boy obsessed with it as well. So that she'll go, I have a theory about this. And I go, okay. So like she's proper in it, and now she's like, oh, I hope you like my match. Like I said it again, and she was like, oh, now I know what you're talking about. Oh, I hope you like my match. And I was like, I'm sure you did. You did great. And she was like, okay. Oh, now I look at that match differently. And I was like, yeah. But yeah, so Lin-Manuel, he was filming in Cardiff for his Darkest Materials. So that was
Yeah.
filmed in Cardiff. So that's why he was there. But I genuinely was like, oh, like voicemail after voicemail after voicemail of me just going, okay. And I told me Lin-Manuel Miranda was there. And he was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, just that's a little story of Lin-Manuel Miranda watching my friend wrestle and me being very jealous. And my husband.
I think that's great. I mean, for me, I grew up in Inglewood, California, for the most part. Born in San Francisco, lived wherever else, Fiji, Indiana, like a bunch of places in the U.S., but calling Inglewood home. And to be a person of color, especially a male, when everybody's like, Inglewood always up to no good, and all these gangsters and whatever, I'd be watching wrestling and listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? And then, wrestling becoming MMA. So once you know who on the pony at a small, regional MMA show, well, I just see this dude, and he walks in with an entourage. It wasn't an entourage, it was like him and his kids and whatever. And I look, and I was like, oh, wait, that's Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I'm like, okay, this is where all of my worlds collide because worlds collide. But so because it's just like my love for music, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who still play instruments and all that jazz, not a syncopated beat on a push button, whatever. And then this combat sports thing, whether it be done in a ring, or whether it be done in a cage, but this is where it collides. And I mean, there's a picture, and I'm just like giddy as all hell. And it's like I'm meeting my idol, and he's there to watch my friends. And the story of it is the champion of the promotion, and he's gone to fight into the UFC. But Chase Gibson, him and his brother are fighters, right? And they're twins. They fight. Unfortunately, we lost the other twin, Cooper, just this past year, but they had substance issues when they were growing up and what have you. And at a meeting, I guess he says like, "Oh, I'm a fighter" and whatever. So when they go to get coffee and whatever, he gets a tap on the shoulder and like, "I heard you fight." And Chase looks over and it's Anthony Kiedis. And it's like, "I want to go to your fight." And wouldn't you know who on the pony? He was there. So.
Mm-hmm. And it's that sort of thing when that sort of thing happens, and you're just like, why has nobody told me? But at the same time, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I'm a massive metalhead, but Hamilton's a work of art, so it's great. I'm sorry, but it is.
No, absolutely, and you gotta do what you love. Which I gotta ask. I mean, because you're pretty entrenched. All your friends, for the most part, are wrestlers. Your husband is a wrestler. The current NXT UK tag champ, right? So
yeah.
How did Molly Spartan get involved in the world of professional wrestling?
So everybody goes that I loved it as a kid kind of thing, and that is part of the most. I accidentally stumbled upon it. When you're in the UK, if you want to be a wrestling fan, you need to be dedicated, because Raw, Smart, even Elimination Chamber tonight, starts at 1 a.m. So you're up from 1 a.m., you're finishing at like 4 or 5. If you're lucky, like Mania's back at 5. The amount of times I've been in like bars and clubs that you just all end up falling out, and you're seeing people going to their work as you're still going home from watching Mania the night before. But you have to be dedicated. And I remember, so when I was like young, like I was maybe 7, 8, we used to have these like small black Telewest boxes, which were cable boxes. And the channel 22 was Cartoon Network. And at 9 o'clock at night, Cartoon Network would switch channels to TNT. And I am the biggest Powerpuff Girls fan you will ever meet. Like, huge. I can tell you, the first villains in the first episode ever. And yeah, like, I've got a Powerpuff Girls tattoo. Like, that's how, like, I've got the Chemical X bottle, like, on the back of my calf. Like, love it. Still do. Like, actively say I will show them to my children in the future. Like, that's a staple they will be given. But I remember, like, one night I thought Powerpuff Girls were going to start, and the channel usually would come up with a screen saying, like, we're changing to TNT, broadcast will start now, and it used to be the spinning logo. But for some reason, this one night, my parents were out for the night, and I was being babysat by a cousin, and the channel instantly switched, and it was Bill Goldberg's big screaming face just on the screen. Like, and it was in his, like, stage, and I was like, ah! And just fell backwards, fell off the kitchen table, and I just came up and I was like, what is this? And then so I watched it from there. My mum liked to come in and guess who was going to win, and be like, hey, she used to have a theory, which doesn't apply anymore because we tried to, but she used to have a theory, whoever hit first was going to lose, right? But I think that's our theory in, like, fighting. Like, whoever strikes first is the bad guy, so he will lose. So whoever hit first lost. So she used to sit and go, he hit first, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. And I'd be like, okay. But progressively over time, like, my brother became obsessed. I have a little brother. He became obsessed with Dwayne Johnson. Still is. Still has said straight to my face the reason why he supports my wrestling career is because one day he will meet The Rock because of me. Like, that is the thing he said, and I'm like, okay, sure. But like, over time, I'd be taking rock bottoms, he'd be taking stunners. That was just how our brother-sister love. Like, I was always kind of tomboyish, so having a wee brother that was wanting to wrestle was great. And eventually, just through sort of time and things like that, I ended up sort of, when you got to a point where I was going to, like, college and university, it was weird. Like, at that point in time, I never thought I would ever be a wrestler, because at that time, I didn't feel like there wasn't anybody on television that represented me, because I'm not some small, slim, slender sort of girl. I'm just not. I never have been. I've always had a big bum, and I've always just been bigger than everybody else. Even when I was a kid, I wasn't like, it's not me going like, oh, what was me? Like, I was just always bigger than everybody else. So there wasn't really any, there was like Beth Phoenix and things like that, but I felt like at that time she wasn't being used how she should have been. Like, there wasn't anybody on the forefront when I was at that point that was really sort of like, I don't see myself in Kelly. I just don't. Right? It's none against Kelly. I'm just not Kelly, right? And although there were some great workers that came out there and was great talent, I just didn't see myself in them. So I decided, like, in that sort of sense, when I went to sort of college and university, to look at it on a sense of that I wanted to work in wrestling. I came to that decision. I wanted to be in this world, but I thought I'd start sort of the production side of things and the sort of creative side of things. So I looked at WWE, I looked at what jobs were going, I looked at what they required sort of educationally. So I've got a Bachelor of Honours in television and things like that from, like, Edinburgh University, and I've got all that because that's what I went and did. And through that, I ended up working I ended up doing a project with a comedy club, and in doing so, I met Billy Kirkwood, who is the colour commentator for ICW. He just started working for ICW like a couple of months after our project. And the weird thing is we basically met, and like, I kid you not, he had like, I had a Punisher hoodie on. He had a Punisher like side bag. When I asked him if he wanted a drink, he went, "I don't drink," and I went, "Neither do I." Like, "You edge?" And he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh wow, what cool." And we ended up being like, we just were very similar, and like weird things were very similar. And I remember, as soon as the project done, he's got a Pepsi Cola tattoo like here on him, right? So I just went, "I'm going to ask you something, and you're either not going to have a clue what I'm talking about, or you'll know exactly what I'm talking about." And I went, "Are you a really big CM Punk fan?" And he went, "Is it because of the Pepsi Cola tattoo?" And I went, "Yes, but you know what that means. You know what I'm saying." And he was just like, "No." He's like, he got it because the same sort of reason, like all his friends were getting like Jack Daniels or something tattoos. So he got a Pepsi Cola one because that was his favourite drink. And I was like, "Oh, cool." And he went, "But that means you like wrestling." And I was like, "Yeah, I like wrestling." So we became friends. And then he started commentating and sort of announcing for ICW first. And then he became the colour commentator. But he ended up saying to me, like, "Hey, like, I'm working for this promotion in Glasgow. It's like ECW with a Scottish accent. It's so much fun. You should come and just see it." And I was like, "Okay, cool, no, cool. Like, okay, let's do that." So I went with a friend, and I was just like, "I need to work here." Like, I just was like, "I need to work here." So Mark Dallas, the promoter, I basically said to him, "Look, I'm at uni. My equipment is covered insurance-wise because we have to take insurance out if we want to use the equipment." I was like, "So basically, I can get you a camera, I can get you mics and lighting for free." I went, if I just give you a bit of paper that says, this is what I've done, and you sign it, that'll be your deal. I'll come and film whatever you want. You just say, this is what I did, and then you get." And he was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, of course, like at that point, it was just this underground still. Like, there wasn't, it was very like it was a great night in Glasgow, but I hadn't really sort of got further afield than that. And he was like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, of course he did. He was like, "I'm going to get a proper HD camera with full blown microphones and lights and up for nothing. Oh, and you're going to come and work for me for nothing?" I was like, "Yes." But to give him due, I never worked for him for free once. He always paid me. I always feel like I give him kudos for that. But yeah, so I started filming backstage. So all the promos, all the talking segments were me filming, basically directing them backstage. And like, that's why, like, if you talk to like Casey, she'll always say, "I'm the reason she talks now." Because I was like, "Come here, we're going to do this. We'll try it this way." And sort of I'd help the guys sort of try and find their voices. So, and like sometimes people think overcomplicate it and think they need to do like a Hard Times promo, and you don't. You could say 3 words and that could be more effective than a Hard Times promo, although the Hard Time promo is a work of art. But yeah, so that's where I started, and it's weird. Like, it's kind of it genuinely sounds like a rom-com when I talk about it, right? But the reason why I started training was because there was a point where I thought, right, I've learned everything. I know how the shows run. I know how the equipment. I knew everything. I knew how the ring went up, how the truss went up. I knew everything, but I didn't know inside the ring. I knew everything outside. There's ropes, but I didn't know anything inside. And I remember it was a night after an Edinburgh show, and we were packing the ring into the van. And at the doors, I remember there was me and there was Wolfgang. And at this point, we were just friends. Like, we're acquaintances. We weren't even really close friends. We were just friends. We'd seen each other at a show nearly once a month, said hello, asked how each other was doing, and that was really it. And he ended up, for some reason, he ended up talking to me about how he really wanted to coach, right? He wanted to help people and teach them how to wrestle, but he'd never, like, the problem being is that in Glasgow there was really 2 predominant schools, both ran by friends of his, and he never wanted to upset the other one because he thought, if I do it with them, are they going to think that I don't like them, etc. But also he thought, I have my way of how I want to do it. I have an idea of how I want to do it. I don't want to go in and like stomp on each other's toes. I'd quite like to start my own school. And I thought, well, I went, well, and he was saying he had an idea of who he'd want to be, other coaches with him, etc., etc. He's like, but he was worried that nobody would show up. So as a friend at that point, I turned to him and went, right, okay, I'm student number one, right? I'm your first student. Therefore, you've jumped that hurdle. You just need to get the rest, but you've got number one. Once you've got one, you'll get others, right? The first one's your hardest one, and I'll be me. And at that point in time, I genuinely went in with the thought of thinking like, right, I will learn a different perspective. I will learn like how it all works inside the ring, even to the basic minimum kind of thing. And I thought that it would be easier to apply to the filming side of things. Like I'll understand like, right, this is what that means and this is what this means. Things that I wouldn't know until you start really training. And then GPW started, and obviously it was Wolfgang, BT Gunn, Red Lightning, Jack Jester, and Lionheart, who are all like main stage in British wrestling, and especially Scottish wrestling. So they started their school GPWA, which was voted last year as one of the top 10 schools in the world. Just saying. But yeah, like the way they go about it is great and stuff. So at that point, I genuinely thought like this is what I'm learning. And once I got in the ring, I was like, oh wait, I'm not terrible at this. I'm not the best, but I'm not bad. And it was that sort of, and also at that sort of point was when like Piper Niven was like killing it in Japan, and it was that feeling of like looking at her and like I'm now really good friends with Piper. Like I knew her at the time, but like I'm really good friends with her now. And like I say to her like if you weren't about, I don't think I'd be doing this either. Like it's that weird sort of moment where it's looking at her going, right, you can be yourself. You don't need to be this model and fit this mold anymore. That way of thinking is, although it's still kind of in the house, it's getting shoved out the window ever so slightly every day. And I was like, I can do this being me. Like, it doesn't hurt to be more like to get healthier. It doesn't, that's not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. I'm not being here going like, I'm not ever changing. Because, of course, over time with training and things like that, you do. But I didn't feel like I needed to like lose 6 stone in order to be a wrestler. I could use what I had in order to become something different, which I feel like she was bringing. Like she's beautiful. Like Viper's, she's just got this Farrah Fawcett natural blonde hair and just the most beautiful face. And she's just confident and gorgeous. Everything about her is just beautiful. And then you've got somebody like Kaylee Ray, who physically is the complete opposite, but still confident and beautiful and happy in her own skin, and was just very much herself. And that's what I think radiates now, where there's not this mold that you have to be in and then we shape you into a wrestler. It's a case of you can use everything that you have and somebody will like it. Like, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but at the end of the day, I'm definitely other people's cup of tea. Like, some people like it with milk and some people don't. That's just how it goes. And yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up in wrestling. So I ended up in production side of things. So I'm like fully qualified to like run the show. But I decided, no, I wanted to actually do it. Like, it was weird. Like, it was weird finding a dream that you always kind of knew you wanted to, but never fully committed to because you thought you didn't belong in that world. And then realizing, oh, wait, I might not, but I can smash the door in and come into it. Like, so that's kind of the approach I have at the moment.
I love it though. I mean, you've done everything, including in the ring, and I love that you didn't go, and not to disparage anybody that does go for personal glory, because like you said, we're all marks that do this. Whether we're announcers, whether we're podcasters, whether we're wrestlers themselves, we're all marks. But the fact that you looked at getting into the ring as just another kind of mountain that you could climb. And I think it's amazing. And also showing faith in your friend, because right now there's a lot of things in the world, you don't have to look far from it, and we're kind of losing faith in each other. And it was just like, you learned a new skill, you were helping a friend, and then, I mean, would you know, because you gained a husband out of it. So,
I mean, in all honesty, one of the main aspects in wrestling that it all boils down to is trust. So you end up trusting and getting closer with people. And I mean, that's basically what happened with me and Wolfie. We just, in training, we got closer, and you end up confiding in one another and learning that, oh, wait, we've actually got a lot in common. Like, we are watching the exact same TV shows. We are, like, we love the same things. And yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, you could see that I gained a husband, and that's why I talk about it being like, it's like a rom-com where it's like, we were friends, put in a wrestling ring, and we talked about each other's dreams, and then we wed. Like, it sounds like that. It sounds I mean, if somebody's not penciling this down and making it a Hollywood production in 3 years' time, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But yeah, it's that kind of way where, yeah, like there's a lot of, you've got to have a lot of faith. And wrestling, it is all about trust. Like, when you're in the ring with someone, you need to be able to trust that they are on the same page as you. Like, you could be very different as people outside the rings, but when you're in the ring, you need to be on the same page, or bad things happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, and that could be, it looks awful, or it can be very dangerous. Like, I won't sit here and say like I've had some perfect career and every match I've had is a 5-star rater. No, but like, my main thing is that when people come back, there's many times I've been at shows and people come back going, "Oh no, that was terrible. That's the worst I've ever heard." I went, "Did anybody get hurt?" And they go, "No." And I go, "Then it wasn't terrible." That's when it's terrible. When someone gets hurt, that's when it's bad. When it's not very good, that's when you learn, and that's when you adapt. And there's been loads of times I've had girls crying and boys crying because they think, I'm never going to get booked anywhere else in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I go, no, we all have terrible, terrible matches. Like, one of my favourite bad matches I ever had was the first time. So there's Ergod Rio, who I love dearly. She's from Preston. And it was the first time we met, and we're in this 3-way. And we possibly, I think I can say we won the worst referee ever. And the guy didn't want the match to stop. It was so annoying. So in this 3-way, it was myself, Rio, first time we'd ever met, and Jayla Dark, another Glaswegian wrestler. I'm not from Glasgow, but she's a Glaswegian wrestler. And oh my god, it was so bad. There's a point where I'm choking. So like, although it was a 3-way, like the rules were applying, like, so there's no choke outs of the ropes, count out, stuff like that. It's very, because it was such a small place where we were staying within the confines of traditional rules. So I'm choking, like, I think I was choking Rio in the corner, and I start counting 6, 7, and I'm finally like, oh god, the guy's just like not caring. I remember doing that, actively counting for him, going, why are you just staring at me? Like, you should be stopping this. And then there was a point where, for some reason, like, and he didn't count the 3. He just went 1, 2, and stopped, and I was like, what? And I'm lying there, and I remember going, put me in your, and I just remember going, put me in a submission, just put me in it, and I'm just going to lie here. Put me in a submission. I tapped out, and she let go the hold, which because it tapped out, and he went, hold's broken. He pointed at the ring bell, and then went, hold's broken. I was like, and I was just like, hurt your finisher, and that was the worst I've ever. And I remember just lying like a plank at the side of the ring, going, "I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I'm just not moving. I'm just not doing anything." It was the worst I've ever. Like, that was, but that was a case of like, nobody got hurt. Nobody, like, we got through this. It wasn't great. We all know it wasn't great, but we got through it and nobody got hurt, and that's the main thing. And like, touch wood, like, I've never had any major injuries in any matches that I've been in, and that's to do with the whole trust element. You need to be like that. Like, what it genuinely worries me. I've had a few messages with people, and I don't know why. It's not really a thing in the UK, because like, everybody kind of, one of the first questions is, where did you train, or who trained you, and oh, who's your coach, kind of thing. It's a weird sort of thing. Like, it's not like gossip or anything or something, but it just seems to be, what school is it you go to? Oh, I go to this school. Oh, who coaches there? Oh, so-and-so. Oh, right, okay, cool. It's always kind of thing. But I have heard horror stories of like girls going into rings and then realising their opponent is the daughter of the guy that owns the hall that the ring in, so they can like, and like, I'm trying to deal with that, and I'm just like, that's horrible. Like, nobody should be in that position. And like, that's why I understand why there's some states that have like, you have to have a license or something.
Yeah,
like,
no, 100%.
you're able to do that. Well, there's no license here in the UK, because it's just kind of standard practice of, if you've not trained and you've not got any credibility behind you, you're not getting in anybody's ring, because it would shut down. Like, it's just not happening.
Yeah, and it's weird because I think the first kind of like worldwide kind of, because it's happened over time, right? Like, the territory days, I'm sure the World of Sport days, where, I mean, I think just the style of wrestling of World of Sport, it was harder to get away with. But I mean, we've seen MMA fights where, like, on a regional, like, tribal land, where, like, oh, somebody missed weight. Hey, you want to fight? Like, I've literally seen people like get called from the crowd to go fight. Like, we'll pay you $50 in beer. Let's do this. Like, and do it. And then we've even seen like, oh, pro wrestlers that, like, I think it was like the mass transit Eric Kula story of ECW, where
Yeah.
New Jack literally sliced him. Yeah, and it's just like,
Yeah.
that does happen, but also like you were saying, in terms of being a professional, right? I mean, there's many reasons why people want to do the thing, right? Whether wrestling, to me, whether you do it in a ring, cage, or whatever, like pro wrestling, much like MMA, it's a combat sport. You do get hurt. That is it, so when you enter into those confines with somebody that doesn't have that experience, you're risking it goes like the titles, right? And you're risking the credibility of the promotion, the ring, why you're even doing it. Like, is it that much that you wanted to get over that you called in your mate and were like, hey, let's do the thing, I'm gonna finger poke you to doom and whatever? But what does that say about the territory or the promotion at large?
I mean, for me, it seems crazy that it can happen, especially in America, because you don't have the luxury that we do of the NHS. Like, if things go wrong, at least I know I can phone an ambulance and not panic about some mad bill coming through my door. I can just phone the ambulance, and like, there's been like, I've not. Well, no, that's a lie. Like, I've been at shows where like we've had to phone an ambulance, and at least there's that option. You know what I mean? Like, is it that bad that we need to phone an ambulance? Yes or no? And you can. And most times you'll throw somebody in a car and just drive off, and it gets looked at, it gets sorted. If you need surgery, if you don't need surgery straight away, that thing, and all gets dealt with. Where I have in America, like, no, I'm not going to get, like, the idea of getting in the ring with someone who has had no training, might not even know how to. There's a thing I say to friends and anybody that asks me, like, I've had a lot of fans say to me over the years, like, oh, I'd love to be a wrestler, but I just don't think I could. And a genuine reply from me is, can you do a forward roll? Can you do a forward roll? And they'll go, yeah. And I go, then there's more hope than you think. Because the amount of people that can't do forward rolls, like, they just can't. And like, part of GPWA's, like, how they take you into your classes and stuff, like, you start off in like one class and you have to get to a certain point, then you get into a second class, then you get to a certain point, and then maybe there's a third. When I was the first ever class, so it's very different from what I'm in today. But it's done in like blocks where before you get put into the main class with everybody who's went through all the stages, you need to get to a certain point so that when you do join them, you've got the basic foundations and you're safe to get in the ring with everybody else so that you can start to learn from those that are more experienced than you. And you'll start listening to them. And it's daft things like I'll say to boys, like, constantly keep your hands up. If you're standing in a corner, keep your hands up. If you're waiting for what you're doing, because if you hang your arms down low, you look like you're not ready. Where if you're here, you're constantly ready for a fight. It's just daft things like that that you don't think about until you have someone saying to you, do this. Does it not look better? And they go, yeah. And like, if you're doing this, why is that wrong? Because I can hit you there and I'll hit you in the face. Like, come on, think about this properly. But everybody that I know, that if I walk into GPWA, the class that I'm in, everybody there, I'm at least safe in the ring with. They might not be the best. It might be their first day. But you've got to, they can do forward rolls, they can do shoulder rolls, you can bump them, you can, you know what I mean? They know that kind of the basics, like nobody's going to get majorly hurt. It's not that nobody takes a dent here and there and takes a knock and a bruise, but I'm not panicking that if I grab somebody and throw them, they can't roll themselves to safety so that they don't break their neck. And it's not that, like, even through the schools, it's not that there's been people that have forward rolled so somehow into like corners of walls and split their head open, and there's mad things, and people don't think of it that way. But yeah, why did I get onto that?
No, I think that's, but I think it all relates, right? Because again, somebody that's untrained, you spoke of the trust, right? Like, and that when you go into your training school, and also, if you're trained by a particular school, you are essentially their business card to the rest of the business, right?
Yeah.
You are their credibility. That's where, like, again, Lance Storm, not only was he an amazing wrestler himself, but look at all of the people that he's trained.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was working at a FedEx office, former Kinko's, and Diamond Dallas Page walks in, and he lived in the area and whatever, and I was like, oh, big fan, like, I want to get into the wrestling business, and he's like, you got to, like, not even skipping a beat. He goes, go to Booker T school and lose that gut. Wow.
Yeah. There's some people that are brutal. Like DDP is like I ran the merch stall for him at like a Q&A thing they did, and at his DDP workshop in Glasgow. So like I got on great with the guy, but he's very just like, this is what you need to do, and you're like, fair enough. But it is there's this trusted schools that you go to because they do produce talent. And they produce safe workers, and it's like, I'm very honoured that a lot of the talent that comes out, like, I'm the first lady essentially of GPWA that's come out, and like, but there are other girls that have come out that are great. There's some girls that are coming up that, like, there's Ellie Armstrong is a girl who's just coming to school. She had her debut with myself, like, during lockdown, so nobody's. But she's incredible. Like, she's a big girl. Like, we work great together because she's bigger. But she could be great if, like, she focuses on like a new Piper Niven kind of sort of vibes about her. But there's loads of really great talent. But like, there's also like a queen of guys like Kez Evans, Leighton Buzzard. Like, the list goes on and on. But every talent that comes out are solid talents, are good talents. You're going to get a decent match at them, and nobody's going to get hurt at the end. We're very much trained like how to deal with things on the fly. There's times you'll go to training and they'll go, right, you've got 5 minutes. I want a roll-up finish. Go. And you go, okay. And you just need to go. Like, we're taught how to, like, just chain wrestle. We're taught, like, it's very much a case of, I think the standard that comes out of GPWA, they want to be high. They don't just want it to be like, this guy's all right. Like, there's stages and shows as well. So, like, you don't really get to go out in the public until you've gone on a thing, which is a show we call £5 Wrestling. And the simple thing is you pay $5 to get in to come and see this show. But it's all the guys that are at that stage where they need to start having matches in front of people to sort of get their personas and what their character's going to be and how to interact with the crowd. And the majority of times it's friends and families and things like that who want to come and see them support their family member. But at the same time, maybe they don't have like 20, 30, whatever, like they've got five. They can save a fiver to come and see their nephew wrestle for the first time. And so we do that. That's the first Saturday. And then there's Wrestling Experience Scotland that comes out of GPW. That's the family-friendly shows, and they go about different places in Scotland. It's not just in Glasgow. So we do a place called Bathgate. There's loads of places that we go around to. And then, obviously, with GPWA, it's connected to ICW. And once you get onto that level, obviously, you're on a bigger stage and you end up being on the WWE network. So it is the direct sort of build-up that you have to. So you start here. And once you're sort of past £5 wrestling, you can start going to other places. After you've had 2, 3 things like that, maybe then you can start sending out your CVs to other places to try and book you. And I know that's what I did. Like I started off in the beginnings matches. Weirdly, Casey, although she is my tag team partner, she was also my first ever match as a tag team. It was me and Carmel Jacobs against the Owens twins. And she was my first singles opponent as well, which were at these shows in the Asylum. So it's weird how like my wrestling career has very much involved her. But yeah, so like started there, and then after that started to then go out in the world and be like, hey, look, I can do the wrestles. Nobody gets hurt. Talk to them, like I can do this. And sort of then started venturing out. But there is this whole sort of, you're taught the etiquette of how you should behave, but sort of in a show, what you should do, how you should dress. Like you show people your gear, because if you are looking horrendous, you will be told, no, go get someone else. Like, yeah, okay, if it's my first ever outing was at a gala day, which was just a battle royal, and I was in like a sports bra and leggings and some boots, and it wasn't the best, but it was okay. I've definitely seen worse gear on people who are currently wrestling. But yeah, it's that sort of thing where there is this sort of, when you are out and you go out into the world, the name is saying a lot about the school, like saying that you come from there, because not only is it still Wolfgang, BT Gunn, Jack Jester, Red Lightning, you also have like Kaylee Ray, you have Stevie Boy, you have Jackie Pole, Liam Thompson. Like there's this whole host of people that now are involved in the coaching side of things. Obviously, a lot of it now is sort of remote, but there is a lot of things in place. And like even although GPW is in Glasgow and has a lot of that, there's also FPWA, which is the Fife Pro Wrestling Asylum, which weirdly is in the town that I grew up in, even though I live in Glasgow. It's on the other side of the country now, which is run by Andy Wilde. So we're on each coast of Scotland now. And it's that idea of like, if you come from an asylum, you're going to have a quality of wrestler about you. Because you wouldn't be allowed to come out, because the school would basically kibosh it and be like, no. And there's been times where I've seen like Jack Jester in particular is the guy that you go to with your gear and go, how's this? And if he goes, no, you go, okay, that's bad. Because there's a certain, like, you need to look professional as well. Like, there's nothing worse. And there are some big names that, I have issues with their gear, which we'll talk about after the recording stops.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
To completely ruin my chances. But there's some, like, but for me, like, you can ask anybody, I am the most picky when it comes to, like, so my major issue is that for some reason I always forget to pull my knee pads up.
Oh.
Right? Pads on my knees. And the amount of times that I've watched matches back and I spend the entire time just shouting at my past self, pull the knee pads up, because I hate it. Like, I'm like, pull them up, just notice and pull them up. But it's the same sort of thing. Like for me, like I always love a pair of wrestling boots. But if you are not good, if you're going to wear like boxers or like trainers or whatever, or sneakers, like the way it needs to flow properly and the colours should match. I am, I, I've got friends that over like even Elimination Chamber, they'll want my like ranking of everybody's gear and like why something annoys me and why it doesn't and why it doesn't make sense. And I'm that person. But I'll also be the person that's got I've always got I've always got a small pair of scissors on hand in my gear so that if anybody's got labels hanging out or things hanging out there, I go up and cut it off and go, get that. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I like the school has that sort of thing. They're although sometimes it can seem harsh, it's not. It's a way to go. If you're going out in the world, you need to be. You're not just presenting yourself. You're presenting the school.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to look at least like they know what they're doing, and they've
Yeah.
not just got their gear off Wish.com.
No, 100%. I love your approach. I love because again, um, if basketball shorts are not even allowed in MMA fights, amateur MMA fights, and you do absolutely no flips or ask anybody to base for you or what have you, right?
Difference between if the street profits are wearing them, because essentially their gimmick is they're meant to be basketball players. They were doing the
Yeah,
big slam dunks and things
yeah,
like that. And I'm sorry, not everybody's Kevin Owens.
yeah.
Kevin Owens is a special, like, he grafted so that he can go, I get to wear this. It's
Hmm.
that idea of like, not everybody talks, but you need to be a good wrestler. You need to be the best. Like, if you're not going to be a character anymore, because if you're so scared of a microphone, you better be the best wrestler in the world to be allowed past that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
there's so much aspects to it. But yeah, like if it makes sense. So like for me, the New Day always have these bright, mad, colourful trainers on and
yeah,
sneakers on, but that's because it matches the rest of their gear. It doesn't,
right.
it's not jarring. They don't all of a sudden just have bright white Adidas sneakers on
Yeah.
and then all their mad gear. It all flows perfectly.
Hmm.
Shane is wearing, like Hudson wearing those basketball. His whole thing is that he's this basketball player, and that's where they come like
Hmm.
stylistically it makes sense. It all
Yeah.
flows. There's a psychology to what they're wearing. But if you're just wearing it because it feels more comfy, then no. Or you're
No.
just wearing it because boots are expensive. Of course they're expensive. They're your working shoes.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be buying if you buy cheap wrestling boots, they will fall apart.
Yeah.
Don't buy cheap wrestling boots.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I feel like what people wear is part of the psychology. It's not just what they say and how they act. It's
Yes.
everything.
It is everything. It is everything. And speaking of everything, Stephen McKenna says, "Hi Molly, your favorite Irish person."
Stephen, you're going to get me in trouble. You know you're not my favourite. You
Ooh,
know that's Casey Owens because
ooh,
you don't start a fight.
yeah. There we go. I mean, and then I was speaking of fight. It says, "Mom, the feast." Okay, yeah. Translate that one for me. I don't want to butcher it.
Mon the Fierce Pfeiffer. I'm
Yes.
from Fife and we are known as Fifers.
Okay. What is a fife?
Fife is where I'm from.
Okay.
Fife is a region of Scotland. I'm from a town called Kirkcaldy and moved to a place called Glenrothes when I was younger. It's where like St Andrews is,
Okay.
where golf pretty much home is. A lot of the TV show Outlander,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of that was filmed in Fife.
Okay.
There's loads of like castles and ruins. It's very, very, very pretty. Not much wrestling. There's some, but there's not much.
No.
So for me, really, to sink my teeth in, I had to move to Glasgow because it's pretty much the apex in Scotland for wrestling. But yeah, I am a Fifer. It's like where is it you're from?
Oh, like Inglewood, right? So Inglewoodian or a Los Angelino for Los Angeles, right? I mean,
It's the same thing. I'm a Fifer. I'm from Fife. It's
yeah, I like
self-explanatory.
it. Yeah, I like it. And that almost sounds like a great wrestling gimmick, like Fife the Fifer.
I used to, I used to go by, there was like, I used to do like this radio show. It was like a late night thing, but it was all wrestling, and I was known as Rowdy Roddy Pfeiffer.
Ha! That's so punny. So funny.
So Rowdy Roddy Pfeiffer, that was me. So yeah, that's what I used to go by. I was like, okay, cool.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And, in terms of your wrestling school and your training, that would be a great introduction. No, 100%. So shout out to you, Louise. And Sam Oliver, good friend, says, hi, Molly. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Sam. We will meet once the world stops being on fire.
Yes, 100%. Well, or in the case of Texas, here in the States, frozen.
Well, it's so bad. The thing is, right, what's annoying me about that is I genuinely personally keep up to date with American news.
Yeah.
So much. Like I've got this weird fascination with everything that's going on, and the whole
so does Shinsuke Nakamura. So I mean,
the Ted Cruz mind-blowing arrogance, and like I was angry at that, and it doesn't affect me in any way. And I'm like, moron, what an arrogant arsehole, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's so bad. But the amount of people that are like, oh, it's because of the Green New Deal, and I was like, there is no Green New Deal. It's not happened. It's not a thing yet. Like it's a proposed thing has not happened yet. But if it had happened, this probably wouldn't be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about how wind turbines are stuff. I'm like, shut up, right? Scotland we're a country that is 100% all our everything that's powered is all natural resources. It's all wind and water powered. So we're an example that it works. Wind and water power works. It powers everything. It powers my ring light that I've got for on shows. It charges my phone. Everything. We are 100% wind and water powered country. We have free education. We have free healthcare. We have it's not an unfeasible thing. Like when you mark it down, like I was talking to a friend about university and things like that. I think I have about maybe they're about for four. Well, no, let's think about it. 1, 2, nearly maybe 6 years of higher education. I've maybe got about £3,000 worth a day. That's it. Possible. I don't think even it's that much. That's me highballing it. Because that was me getting like a travel expense or something like that paid. It's not my education was free. Like I didn't pay a thing. As long as I was bettering myself, you get it for free. That's the whole purpose. As long as you were going up in higher education, and they've seen it that if we educate our citizens, they can make the country better. They're a smart we're smart citizens. We can fool doctors and make this, that, and the next thing. There's a reason why Edinburgh University is one of the best for medical, but all their education is covered for. If you're in Scotland, if you're Scottish, it's covered, and our healthcare is free, our medicine's free, our prescriptions are free. If we want, yes, we can nip into a shop and buy paracetamol or ibuprofen, which is Advil, but the difference in price as well is I can pick up a pack of Advil for not even £1, and it's a pack, and you know what I mean, and that's just standard. If you've got something that's inflamed, you buy that, so if you want to buy it, you can, but you can also go to a doctor and get it. If you've got a pre-existing condition that means that you need to constantly have it, you just get it, because is it not better that your citizens are well and healthy and can go to work and are smart enough to do the smart jobs? There's a reason why Scotland's invented a lot. There's a reason why there's so many Scottish people out there in the world when there's only 5.5 million of us.
That's just LA. 5.5 million. That's just LA.
That's our country. That's our whole country. And think about all the Scottish people. Look at it this way. There are 4 Scottish champions in WWE right now. 4.
Facts.
4. There was a point where there was 5 when Nikki had one of the tag belts.
Yeah.
That was literally 1 in a million. 1 in a million. were champions in WWE. They were literally so it's this weird sort of thing where we're just like, yeah, okay, you want to better yourself, you want to help make the country better, yeah, cool, go learn, cool, no bother. And yeah, okay, you need to smarten yourself up if you want to go particular schools
Right.
or particular universities, but yeah, like if you're going to better yourself, yeah, go.
Yeah, there's a couple of I don't want to compare, right? But the thing about it is, you said 4 to 6 years of higher level education that you got that makes you completely suited to do everything that you're doing within the wrestling business. You are a Renaissance woman, 100%, right? So the thing about it is, like, the university or colleges here, right? For that, you would have either paid an accumulation of $250,000 US and or $250,000 per year for that. And that's just like the state level. That's not even the Harvard and that's just like, University of San Bernardino or what have you.
And the thing is, Scotland, even so if you wanted to go someplace else, so I remember a friend of mine, he went and studied in London. Now, again, as I'm saying, England's different. You need to pay for your education in England, which is...
Yeah.
But a friend of mine, the course that he wanted to go on, they didn't offer it in Scotland. The Scottish government still helped him financially in order to go to this other university. Although, and he ended up coming back to Scotland, although it wasn't the full whack, it wasn't fully free, he had to fund some of himself, he still got help when he needed it. He still got given help in order, like grants, to give him some money to pay for some of it, because it wasn't available in Scotland, and that was deemed not fair. If there was a course in Harvard that was unavailable in Scotland but only available there, the Scottish government would help an individual to go to Harvard, and because they see it as, well, if they help the citizens to get their higher education, there's a chance they're going to bring that knowledge back to the country and help the country grow. And it works that's how it happens, because I genuinely think about how, if my husband has to move to America for NXT, although he's in a good position that will be fine, I will come with him. But the idea of, if we were to ever have a family, there's part of me that's like, I'm just going to fly back to Scotland and have my baby back in Scotland.
Yeah.
Because a flight ticket's probably going to be cheaper.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And having to deal with it in America to pay to hold my own child. It's very, I find it very odd when people are so against public healthcare, and it baffles me, because I'm from a country that it works. You know what I mean?
But the thing about it is, you don't know what you don't know. I saw none other than former UFC champion who became a member of the city council in Huntington Beach, California, his hometown, Tito Ortiz. He shared something on his Instagram page about his family in Texas, and they lit, like a ice piece of ice on fire, right? But it didn't melt, and there was a burn mark. And I'm like, that's chemistry 101. That's what happens. You have to have a bigger fire to whatever. But he kind of was like, this is a conspiracy that the government, the big government, which, again, in a small portion, he's a part of, and is about to be ousted because he's not fulfilling his duties. But I mean, that's chemistry. You don't know what you don't know. So when people are like, "Oh, that's big, scary, and evil," well, if people want to believe the narrative because they want to play into the team, I can't make my own countrymen believe that I or people that look like me matter. Oh, I mean, I guess, but I mean, if that's the way that whatever, there's nothing that I could say, do, or whatever. Again, growing up in Inglewood, I always knew that there was like a preconceived notion of what I was going to be. You know,
Mhm.
Jive talking, whatever the heck, with like 8 baby mothers and whatever, drug abuse and everything like that, gangster, whatever. I made it a point, and again, it meant so much more to me because I mean, my mom was an immigrant from Fiji. My
Mhm.
dad fought in the military during Vietnam, was stationed in Korea, and he was here in like the land of milk and honey, but he went over to Korea, and the Koreans knew more about his culture than he did, get an American education. So I made sure that I sound the way, whatever. I don't speak any other languages, right? Nor do I, my mom came over in 82 and she sounded like a British person who is of color, right? And she got accosted. Like, she wanted to make sure that my sister and I did not speak any bit of her Fijian tongue because she didn't want us to have to go through living here in America what they went through. So the one like language that I speak, hopefully I speak it well enough. Now I might not be good with figuring out time conversions and what have you, but that's at least one thing that I can do.
Yeah, it's this horrible sort of thing. Like that shouldn't be a thing. Like you should be able to speak Fijian. Like you
Yeah.
should. Like it's not like you should be allowed to do that. But it's just like yeah, that's horrendous. Like it baffles me. There was like a perfect example of like which it sounds mad, but when obviously all like the Black Lives Matter protests and everything,
Mhm.
which needed to be done. Like it just did. Yeah, okay, it happened in a pandemic. That wasn't great, but at the same time, it was needed. It wasn't like it was something that. It wasn't like it was just they were like, let's do this today. No, that's not how it worked. It was built up frustration and pain over time. As someone who is white, I understand that white privilege is real. I understand I have never been judged for my colouring. I have been judged because I'm a woman, but I've
That's
not been judged
understandable.
because of my colouring. And I will never understand what that is, how that feels. But I know there's times where I just need to shut up and listen to those that are venting their frustrations and purely just want to be treated fairly.
Mhm.
That's it. It's not like it's some mind-boggling hard thing that it's not. You know the thing is, it's not even that ludicrous to ask for. Just treat me fairly. Just treat me as if you would treat other. But it's just that sort of yeah. I
Mind
like
numbing. It's
that.
mind numbing. Like I like the brain matter is seeping out of your ears as it is mine. But but to those folks, you, I mean, and it happens, right? And I would like to think that if it were happening to you, I would go, if the shoe was on the other foot, and that's how I kind of have to look at it. Like if the shoe was on the other foot, and you were in a place of disarray, and I had the power, and you're saying, hey, I need help. Well, me as a member of the community, not because I want anything from you, not because whatever, you are a part of my community. You also are a human. If both of us got attacked by a jaguar today, hopefully we're both kind of pulling each other,
Yeah.
nubs and all,
So saying
away.
there was this perfect TikTok that came out, and it was of this girl saying, "I'm going to go help this put out this burning house," and then this woman going, "Yeah, but all house matters," and she goes, "Yeah, but this one's on fire, so I need to go put it out. But all house matters." Right, but I need go. This one's on fire. This one needs attention. Let's go deal with that one. And weirdly, it was like that makes sense. Like people were like, that's kind of the closest thing you could go. This is how you describe it, but it's just yeah. Like I know, like I just like I remember when it all was kicking off. I was messaging like black friends of mine to
Yeah,
say, are you okay? Like, are you good? Like, I know I can't I like at that point like there was like friends out of America as well. I was like,
yeah.
I know I can't help you as in like I can't physically be there to stand by you, but know that I am kind of thing
Mhm.
and that I'm here Like, I will, if there is anything you need me to share, is there anything you need me to talk about? Is there anything that, like, just direct it to me? If you want me to read anything, direct it to me, and I will. And I was very much like, there is going to be things, even someone who I feel like myself, I am somewhat educated in the world. There's things that I won't know. There's things that I will never understand and haven't experienced, so have never had the opportunity to learn from. But I would want to learn from others so that I can at least have not an understanding, but at least a consciousness of it happening and it being in reality. Um, so yeah, so I'd actively just be like, just I'm here to do whatever I can. If I can use what I can use to help, then I'm here. Because I was never, I remember like growing up, like gender roles was never taught to me as a child. Like my parents never taught me like, you're a girl, so you can't do this. You're a boy because that's boy. I remember like my mum, there's a story my mum tells me when I was like a toddler, and these group of boys told me that I couldn't play with the game they were playing because I was a girl. And I genuinely, as a toddler, like I must have been 3, went, no, I can, because I didn't understand. Like, wait, no, I can play this game. I am able to play this game because I can play. So that was never taught to me, and like it was never a case of if you were strong enough to pick the table up, you pick the table up. If you were nothing to do with boy girl thing, but also it was never taught to me. Like one of my mom's best friends growing up was gay. Martin had a boyfriend. That was just simple fact. It wasn't that's just sometimes boys have boyfriends, sometimes girls have girlfriends, and sometimes girls have boyfriends. That's just how it works. As long as everybody's nice to you, then it's cool. And it was the same sort of thing. Like I remember at the end of the street, there was a small like shop, and it was run by a Sikh gentleman called Shinda. And Shinda gave me a VHS that was of the Ghostbusters like animated series, and I was like, Shinda's the best. Like I thought Shinda was great. I'd go in and say hello to Shinda, and like I remember Shinda vividly. And then I remember somebody like smashed the windows of Shinda's shop, and I remember being a kid going, I don't understand why somebody would do that to Shinda, because Shinda's a nice man. Like there was never, so for me, like sexism and racism and homophobia are taught traits, are things that are taught to you, because you're not born with hatred in you. You're not born to dislike somebody because the colour of their skin, or if they're male or female, or if whoever they love. That's not a thing. That's not something you know instinctively. It's taught. So to me, it was never taught. To me, it was just this happens. Sometimes boys love boys. Okay. Sometimes that man is black and that man is white. Okay. Like if they're horrible to you, tell people. If they're nice to you, say hello. Okay. Like don't run away with strangers, but at the same time, be nice to people. And like that's just kind of how it was with myself. So now it's the case of like, right, I know I'm not. Like, I know I can understand the frustration of individuals just by basic frustrations, you know what I mean? But I'll never understand the level of it as somebody's race. But I could at least shut up and listen to those that are upset.
Yeah, and again, that's it. If we can all listen to each other, right? And that's also like this podcast. Like this didn't exist prior to July because I thought the world was gonna end. Like I was just like, and my wife, she was brought up like apostolic and everything, where they were taught such things, and I was just like, oh, I mean, I was born a Buddhist and what have you, a Nichiren Buddhist, which is far fetched, right? But like I was like, oh, maybe they were right. Like maybe I didn't know. Like this looks like that thing that they say in the book. I mean, whatever, right? But I didn't do anything. And then like July, I was just like, friends that had me on their podcast, they were like, you should try it, right? You should try it. And here we go, like 300 some odd episodes later, and it's just awesome. But it's a way of us figuring it out. Like we don't know. This is an unprecedented time where like everything, like just in the last calendar year, especially here being in the States, you're like, oh, that'll never happen. They've happened over the course of like a year span. Like January 6th here, right? My son, my 13-year-old, my youngest boy, whose name is Owen, funny enough. Shout out to my wife for allowing that, because Brett didn't go with Woods, so it was Owen. So there you go. But I mean, Owen had started back his new semester of schooling, and he was reading about like the Boston massacre that happened, right? Where like 4 people were shot and whatever. You know when that happened, Molly? It was January 6th when people were literally storming the Capitol. And I was like, okay, so that less racist, whatever. But again, like also those people, they really feel like I, you know, yes, the last president, he was a polarizing figure, but he's out, right? He's out. So like this whole trial about whatever, right? Or like all this trial and everything like that. Like when people are literally getting evicted, like the trial can wait. Getting the guy that's already out, like more crap, like that could wait. Like you promised this thing, so do the thing that you promised, and that's so again, like all of the things, like from like I almost want to say like Kobe Bryant passing away in the helicopter crash, and it was just like every week. So when things happen, I was just like, of course,
The thing is,
2020.
we've got to really think about it. Of like, we're all currently in the turn of a history right now.
Mhm.
Like we're all living in a point where in books it'll talk about how this was the next. And although like the past, you've got like the Renaissance and the blah blah blah. We don't know what the name is yet, but there's going to be a name from when we went from post to pre-COVID kind of thing. Like, but that's what it is. COVID's going to be like the Spanish flu. Like, there's a blip in history, and then there's everything that changes from one significant moment. Like, there was World War One and World War Two, which probably was the last major blip. We're in a blip. We're in that point that's going to have some name that'll be named once we're all dead and gone.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just we're at this weird like we're never going to go back to what we were. That's the one thing we know. Like we're never
Mhm.
going to revert back to how we were, and quite frankly we shouldn't revert back, because that's, although a lot of people might have felt more comfortable in the past, major change means that sometimes people need to be uncomfortable for things to change. And you need to realize that, you know what, maybe I was wrong, maybe I did things that I shouldn't have, and understanding things just a bit better. And I think as long as individuals are happy to learn from things, that's when things can start to change. Like you can't just, it's this sort of like left v right, and that's the problem.
Right.
There's a point, and I feel like it's like it's gone from there and it's become this over the last 4 years. But really, we need to start sort of coming back. And you don't have to agree on everything.
Nope.
You don't have to be. You can be a Democrat. You can be a Republican. You can be SNP. You can be Labour. You can be a Tory. But
Yeah.
as long as there's a point where you can at least understands point of view,
Right.
so that it's not an instant you're wrong and I'm right. It's a
Yeah.
case of, right, why do you think you're right? Because I think you're wrong, because I think this is right. That's
Right.
how the conversation should
Yeah.
be. Because then there's probably a lot of people that are full of rage and hate because
Yeah.
it's been put into them,
Yeah.
and they don't actually understand the bile they're spouting out of their mouth,
Yeah.
because they've been told, no, we're right, they're wrong. Whatever they say is wrong, so whatever they say, it can't be right. So even if you're being the most logical, like calm individual, they've been taught you're wrong. It doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth, it's wrong. Even if you probably agree with them, it's still wrong somehow.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of, we've got to sort of try and hopefully the newer generation who's witnessing all this, the younger generation below us, can start to question things more than
Yeah.
just accept it.
No, 1000%. And that's the thing about like villainizing one side versus the other. I don't, and it's funny because my mom, she loved the Kennedys, growing up, in Fiji. She loved the Kennedys. She loved the British royal family, that whole deal, and, there's, regardless of all of this, right? Like, you have to get to a point with all of the stuff that you said about this right and this whatever. Like, if you really want to be about the issues that you say that you're about, well, with all of the nasty things that you said, all of the things that you did, all of the businesses that have gone in disarray and gone out of business and were like, I mean, 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Long Beach, they were burnt down during the protests. I'm like, what is going for a jiu-jitsu school? Like, what is going to be gained? What is being said by a place where, like, people who are former criminals, people who are teachers, people who are kids and what have you, that they come to parlay this art together and you burn it to the ground. What is being said? Like, at some point, we have to, regardless of all of this stuff, we have to kind of put it on a table and be like, yo, we got to sort this thing out. Are you going to do that? Or am I going to do that? Let's do that. And hopefully some of those scars that happen won't permeate what needs to actually happen.
Yeah, because it's the idea of like, it's the question of why that I feel like people just ignore. Like, why are people doing this? Why are people? And even you can apply that to those that went to the state capitol. Although it was terrorism, let's not lie, but at the same time, those people believed that they were acting on the words of their president, the person that they've elected, that their country's elected to follow. So there'll probably be a lot of individuals, although like I sat and watched it in horror, and I'm not even in the country, and I understood how big of a deal it was. But at the same time, there's probably a lot of people who are there, although you're like, you're a moron. There's a lot of people that have been brainwashed. You can say that, but there's a lot of people that probably don't think that they were doing wrong. They were acting. Yeah, it's a hard, like, there's a lot of people in there that I think need educated rather than punished.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you punish them, they're going to double down
Yep.
and not alter and not try to learn. Where if you educate, then at least they can then see the error of their ways and understand, oh my God, what have I done? Like acting like it's is it the worst hangover ever? Like that sort of, although I don't drink, it's that idea of like, is it a reality hangover where they're so clogged up with all this garbage and nonsense that they don't see that what they're doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like they've been drunk on this mad.
Yeah.
If I start saying words about Trump, I'll just become horribly nasty.
No.
But like, it's like they've been drinking the Trump for so long that they've got this idea that this is what we need to do. This you've heard all the mad, like, though I don't drink, I've definitely heard plenty of mad stories about the time that I stole this because I was steaming because at the time they think it's a good idea. But it's like instead of actually being drunk, they've been drunk on the Trump.
I mean, and it's side things, right? And like, and people like, I
people
kind of
that
like
come to the Capitol in like
the-
armed SWAT gear with like cable ties and maps of where Nancy Pelosi was. Yeah, get them to buggery. But the ones that were just, the dafties that just were in the place and clearly you were just like, you're an idiot. You're an absolute brainwashed moron. But I don't think you understand what you're actually doing. And that's why a lot of them I don't think realised it was terrorism. Like, you're doing terrorist acts, fascist terrorists, Nazi acts. I don't think you actually understand that. Like, that's the scary thing. At least those that are members of the KKK at least you know they're racist. You know they're arseholes.
Hmm?
But there's a lot, I think, are doing the exact same bidding but don't realise it, which is maddening.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think
no,
you understand what I'm trying to say.
yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and radicalism, it was only cool when it was Perry Saturn, Eddie Guerrero, and Dean Malenko. Obviously, Man of a Thousand Holds. My goodness, right? Yeah, and that's it. That's when radicalism stopped, like especially for this generation. Those three, because there's a fourth. We don't talk about
We
that
don't talk
dude,
about him.
right? And
Yeah.
and the rest of it. So again, radicalism on it, on both sides. You just stop it here. But one thing we don't stop is Sam Oliver's comment and hi Molly, can't wait to see you. Yeah, just yeah, hearts, and little Diesel who won a fight last night. Shout out to you, good sir. What's up? Looking great, guys. Love what you do. You're too kind, too kind, and we're gonna be looking back at 2020 like I survived it.
Yeah. And we're surviving 2021 too. Because let's be honest, it's kind of become a terrible sequel.
Yeah.
But we're getting through it. And as I'm saying, like I say, like especially in America, I feel like you've been stuck in first gear for 4 years and now you've hit second. Let's just get in the third
Yeah,
and get
and we're
going.
only like weeks in, so I mean, nothing happens instantaneously. And Molly speaking realist wisdom I know right now, beauty and knowledge, ability to kick butt, true last kicker. So shout out to you, Stephen Tatum, love it. And he says the thing said it according to Wood, says it according to Wood. Speak your mind. No, 100%, and that's what this is. Which I gotta right back to wrestling real quick. So favorite match that you've ever competed in? And it could be just the match itself. It could also be just everything, the training, the whatever, the road trip to the venue, like, or things that happen backstage with not naming any names, because that's not what we do here. We're not going into juicy gossip and what have you. But a favorite match or experience in the wrestling business?
It's a very difficult one because I'm very self-critical. So usually I come back and go, that was garbage, and then somebody goes, oh, it wasn't. And I go, okay. But I don't know. It's that's a very difficult one. My proper singles debut for ICW was with Casey Owens, which I feel like was very special because she was my first opponent and my first singles. So being my first in ICW was very near and dear and important to me. And yeah, it was just that sort of cool. And there's like a nice wee moment in the ring where before things happen, we sort of like smile at each other, and there's that wee like, and then like right, game face. But yeah, that was special. Like that was really special. But there's loads like at TNT. The first sort of match that I came into, like what me and Casey have done there has been is I'm very proud of that locker room. Like very proud because it went from a place that had, and again, an incredible talent, Lana Austin. But it did feel like for a while that it was a case of they had Lana and then they brought someone in, and that was sort of a continuation. And it was one of those weird sort of things where I ended up at a show because my husband and basically my best friend and everybody that I was going to hang out with that day, because I had my first day off in a long time, were all leaving to go to Liverpool. And I was like, is there space in the car? They're like, yeah. I was like, I'm coming. So I'm coming. I'm not sitting in the house by myself when everybody leaves me. And I ended up at this TNT show in Liverpool. And it was that weird sort of moment where I was watching Casey in the ring and I was like, I have an idea. Like it's that weird notion where I was like, I think just that someone just in you is just like, So I got the brass neck and I messaged the promoter just going, hi, I'm so and so. I have this idea and I think it could really work in your promotion. Um, will you listen to me? And he was just like, yeah, sure. Like he was like, sure, I'll listen. And I was like, smashing, but you could hate, if you hate it, that's fine. I went, if you hate it, then cool. But if you don't, then let's talk. So I pitched this idea of this sort of female sort of stable and it being take no prisoners and that sort of thing. And I had my whole like how I would come in and how we would approach it and things like that. And he was like, okay. And it sort of ended up getting rushed forward from when it was originally meant to start. But that was part of the great, because the first thing I did in the company was I dragged a chair through a crowd, sat in the middle of the crowd, then got up and punched a security guard and jumped the railing. And I was like, yeah, that's very Molly Spartan. It's very Molly Spartan. But from that, just the progression. So from it being basically, and saying that TNT have always been a place that have always had female locker rooms, but separate from the gents. They have always made sure the girls had their own space, and they always make sure there's water and there's snacks backstage for the crowd, which is a mad thing. But if you promotions that just put bottles of water backstage, just go up in my estimations just a wee bit. But they've always done that. I've always been a great place to work, a very safe place to work. I've always thought. But it went from, in the last show that we did at TNT, there was backstage, it went from one girl versus one girl, and it was myself, Casey, Rio, Lana Austin, Millie McKenzie, Charlie Evans, Angel Hayes, Gia Adams, and Lizzie Evo. So there was 9 women backstage, and that was in a segment and 2 matches that were happening on the card. Because now at TNT, it's not unusual for there to be at least 2-3 women's matches on the card, because we have been able to find a place where the girls that come in burst their arse, and they are told, you are listened to. If you have ideas, if you have any queries, please talk to us. Please, I'll bring Jay over and go, this is so-and-so's idea, and we'll present things to them. And it's also the thing of like, if you bust your arse and you put on, you will get on the card. It's not a case of, oh, well, we have one women's match and then a bunch of guys. It's no. These are 2 women's matches. These are matches that people want to see. People pop when the music hits and things because they're excited. Oh, so-and-so's coming out, or they're coming out, they're going to cause a bit of chaos, or they're going to cause a bit of this or the next thing. It's become that place where everybody's a performer, everybody's a wrestler. Gender's really not that an important thing there. And although I understand there are people that aren't into intergender wrestling, that's fine. If that's not your cup of tea, cool. But there are, for me, intergender wrestling is to do with if it makes sense. So I'm not saying like Alexa Bliss should fight Braun Strowman. No, that doesn't make any sense. But if you heard that Charlotte Flair was fighting Seth Rollins, physically, that makes sense. You know what I mean? There's no great... If anything, Charlotte's got more height than the boy, right?
Yeah.
If anything, she's probably got a longer reach and stretch. She's probably got a bit of height on the guy.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of thing where if it makes sense to me, then fair game. Because at the end of the day, when I'm training with guys.
Yeah.
Every ring I've stepped into, I've usually been in with a guy. So it's not that it's unusual or things in training, so why can't it apply if it makes sense? But I feel like at TNT, so I'm very proud of everything that's happened at TNT in Liverpool, because they took a chance on somebody that they could have easily just ignored. Like, not in a rude way, but just been like, I've got other things to do.
Yeah.
And this crazy Scottish woman that showed up and stood behind the merch table one night. But they took a chance, and I genuinely said on the first night, I was like, if you think this is garbage once we're done, I will leave and you will never see me again, and I will happily put my hands up and say, at least I tried. But no, it kept going, and it's still going strong, and people are still excited. Like, people still talk to us about the she-wolves and me and Casey and like the build, and there's been massive moments where there's been turns and things like that, and the crowd's unglued, and they unglue because the performers are good. It's nothing to do with their gender.
That's it. That's where equality lies, where everybody gets treated the same, regardless of how they look, how they feel, and just whatever, which obviously, Molly, there have been a lot of people, both professionally and personally, that have helped you along the way in your development. All right. So let's get some shout outs out of the way, my dear.
Oh dear. Well, I want to thank my mum. Well, weirdly, it's one of those weird ones. Like, of course, there's your mum and your dad, which you'd always give a shout out to, because, the fact that they never ever taught me gender roles, I always, and at the time, obviously, as a kid, I didn't understand, but now I fully understand, and my friends find it hilarious that I've actively told men to F off when they've come to try and take heavy weights off me. I'll take that, you go yourself. And they're like, okay. That's very much a case of there's a difference between being gentlemanly and saying look, I'll grab that if you want to grab that, or it's okay, I'll get that. There's being gentlemanly, and then there's actively coming and taking things off people. Taking things off girls, going, give me that. No. Leave me alone. I've got it. I can carry it. Leave me alone. So I appreciate that. But at the same time, when it comes to wrestling, of course, the GPWA boys have always sort of had my back. They've always been there as well when I've been doing silly things and trying things that they're like, stop that. You're hurting yourself. I remember trying to getting in the ring from the top rope, and I just kept landing on my head, and I'm actively going, stop it, and going, okay, having the guys, so my husband Wolfgang, BT Gunn, Jack Jester, Red Lightning, Lionheart, and then everybody else, but then also being in with people like Casey, obviously a massive one, because although she was the first one, she's always there to listen to my mad ideas as well. So I'm the one going, this is what we should do. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, yes, okay, I've got somebody behind me. So she's always doing that. But then again, there's loads of people. I could be here all night and day. And people that you wouldn't expect who I know have my back. All the girls at TNT, all of them, we've all got each other's back. So from the top, there's Lizzie Evo, who's the TNT Women's Champion, and then you've got Rio, Lana Austin, Alexis Falcon, the Medusa Complex, both Charlie and Millie. And then you've even got girls like Angel Hayes and Gia Adams. I could literally go on and on and on, but I genuinely feel especially, I don't know if it's just I hope it's a worldwide thing when it comes to girls, but we seem to have this idea of we're constantly on a battle against those that are trying to beat us. So there's a certain kind of unity, and the egos kind of go out the door a wee bit, and you can go, right, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea, and nobody really gets offended. Some do, but there's a way to say no and yes. There's sort of a sisterhood there when female wrestlers that I think boys don't. There's a brotherhood, but there's a sisterhood because we're in a constant battle to sort of be like, no, we're just as good as you. But then there's things like Kaylee Ray, Piper Niven, obviously Viper. They've both helped me a lot with things like when I've been trying to actually do daft things. They usually say, do it. Kaylee Ray is the number one person to go, do it. I go, okay. And the thing is, when we go back into the world, there's going to be a whole host of things that I never did before that I do now that I will be doing because I've had Kaylee and Viper going, do it. There's a phrase here which, excuse the language, which is shite bag if you don't. which which is basically you're a shy bag if you don't do it. So if I go, I'm going to do this, and they go, shy bag if you don't, I go, oh, and that means you have to do it. So you all spend, and then you do and go, yeah, and they go, yeah, you're not a shy bag. So yeah, can I just say that? These guys, like even like Stevie Boy, and there's so many people that have given me their time, which is the main thing. And there's people that I haven't been in the ring with who have given me their time. And really, that's some of the most precious things you can get off somebody is their time. Because we could all just sit and be eating chocolate and binge watching Netflix, but if you can message someone and say like, hey, I've got this, do you mind watching it? Or hey, I've got this idea, do you think this is awful? How does this sound? Does this name sound silly? Think it'd be a good idea if I got this? Is it a bad idea if I get this tattooed? Just having people that you can sound ideas off are the people that are worth their weight in gold, especially in wrestling. And are honest with you. Will tell you if your idea's terrible. That's what I found. I managed to find people who will go, that's an awful idea. And I go, oh, thank Christ. Okay, thank you. You're saving me from that. Yeah, so I've got a whole list, and there'll be people that I've missed. Like there's the Kings of the North boys, although I hardly see them, they've always had my back. They've always sent supportive messages, sometimes when you need it. But yeah, no, there's hoes, and like there's Jay from TNT. You're going to need to stop me, or I'm just going to keep going.
No, because I mean, I also want to throw out like a Mark Dallas in here. I also want to throw out the dearly departed and the great Lionheart. Miss that guy always. And I mean, I'm over here, and I was like, I cried when I heard that.
So obviously, like I was friends. Well, like so, everybody that knew Adrian, like Adrian was Lionheart's own Adrian, always had like a story about how like he was one of those people that you grew to love, like as a friend, right? And everybody was like, so the reason why the whole Lionheart's a fanny thing came about was because we all at one point thought Adrian was a fanny, but he was our fanny.
Yeah.
Well, we loved him, but yeah, sometimes you were just like, oh Jesus Christ. And I remember when I started training at GPWA, and he actively, when we did the whole if you got through to the next class or not moment, and everybody's saying, he genuinely turned to me and went, look, I'm going to be honest, mate, I thought you were going to be shit. And I went, oh, and he went, but you're not. He's like, you're not the best, but you're, by God, not awful. He was like, I think you can do this. And he's like, and you proved me wrong. And I was like, thanks. Like, cool. But yeah, like, he was just that kind of guy. But like, once you were like part of his like wrestling family, like you were there for life, you know what I mean? But yeah, we've all got that. Everybody's got a story about, the first time I met Adrian, I thought he was a dick. But he's not. He's just one of those, everybody's got that pal, but he's not. He's the biggest, he was the dearest, sweetest, funny going. But like, yeah, when he passed, it was obviously shocking and horrible, and it's still hard because there's sometimes you think he's just going to saunter back in the door, or certain music plays or whatever, and you're just like, and like even still, like Wolfie and like they came up together in wrestling, you know what I mean? Like they were each other's arch rivals for years when they were teenagers and stuff like that. And there's so many folk photos of everybody. Like I'm pretty sure there's going to be in Drew's autobiography, there's going to be photos that are Wolfie's in his book, because he's got these, like he's a massive hoarder of especially photographs. And yeah, it's that kind of case where it was just so there's a thing where like Adrian constantly quoted a show called Still Game, which is a Scottish sitcom. It's on Netflix, but
Okay.
it's very Scottish. It's about old people. It's a sitcom of old people, but it's very Scottish. It's very, very funny. There's so many quotable lines and like that. And Adrian used to quote it all the time. And Wolfie would always go, "What's that for? What's that from?" And he's done it for years. He did it for years. And he would bite every time. He'd go, "So game," and then he'd go, "Oh, it's you." Right? And he'd realise he's winding me up. And like Wolfie's one of those kind of guys that I'll say things like, "Aye, who's the wee guy for the ring? With the ring? Oh, aye, that's that Harry Potter." Like, so deliberately crossing Lord of the Rings with Harry Potter to see who bites, knowing he's wrong, but he'll deliberately say things like that. Like, he'll say it just slightly wrong for folk to go, "Oh," but he did it to, and Wolfie still does it. So if people quote it, he'll go, "What's that for?" Even we know that's the thing he did where he's never dropped it. But yeah, it's so yeah. I mean, like, of course, there's everywhere. Like, guys, there's Billy Kirkwood. I could thank Billy Kirkwood for introducing me to ICW. There's so many. There's so many people that I could go on and on. There's like, of course, you've got your Mark Dallases, who's the forefront ICW, but back ICW you also have like Duncan Gray, Scott Reed, and you still got like even backstage just an hour like Red Lightning and Jack Jester are doing a lot of backstage stuff. There's Adam Carell, who is the biggest unsung hero of ICW ever. He is like the main sort of director of things, and he films. He's filmed a lot of like NXT UK stuff as well. Yeah, he's such an unsung hero. But he like there's been times where we've done like live broadcasts, and then he's come back to the asylum and been editing all night to make sure that it's up in time for when the American audience wake up to be able to watch it. And he's a complete unsung hero that should get way more shout outs and praise than he does. But yeah, no, there's so many people that I could thank that have helped me. I mean, I'm kind of just happy that they let me stay and they didn't go, "Get this nutter." Like, she just talks non-stop and she comes in here with her big quiffs and she gets excited when a new Funko Pop gets released. Like, the women's nearly, like, yeah, and they've welcomed me in, and yeah, I can just...
Oh. No, but I love it. Yeah, this is I mean, again, being, I guess, African descended as slaves here in America, part Fijian and what have you, on both sides of the family, I have family members that, like, we only get together, we only say nice things sometimes when we pass away, right? And the person can't hear it. So I think, especially in the times that we've had, this is the time where we have to show appreciation to each other, and that's... I don't know, because you just don't know what happens tomorrow. Literally, like, everything could go, like, now more so than ever, everything could go to absolute shite tomorrow, so say it today.
Yeah, like, I've definitely taken it. I've always been a person that I've thought, if it ever passes through my head that I miss somebody or I've been thinking about somebody, I always actively, like, reach out and just be like, "Hey, how you doing? Hope you're well." Like, even if it's a case of just, "Hey, hope you're well." Also, like, it's also things like, there's been girls that I, like, that I've mentioned, like, that I've wrestled down south who ended up who are going to be part of the Progress sort of women's tournament thing.
Tournament, yeah.
And, like, there's Tonga and Alexis Falcon, who have both worked in Manchester, are young up-and-coming talent. And when they came up, I instantly messaged them just saying, like, "Hey, congrats, like, dead chuff for you, go out and kill it," kind of thing. And they were like, "Oh, thanks." And I was like, "But no, like, I feel like you've worked hard." So sometimes just a simple, like, "Well done," is really what you need sometimes, just to go, "I can do this. I can do this." And I like to think that I sometimes think people hide their positive thoughts on individuals because they don't want to seem like they're being creeps. But but they're happily be negative about something else. And I'm like, no, why don't you just, why not say, you know what, you know who I think hits a mean uppercut? This person. You know who I think hits a, like, why not? Like, and if I think that, I'll actively say, like, and I've said, like, I remember I messaged Kaylee a few weeks ago because I sat and properly paid attention to her. So there's on YouTube, there's a match between her and Miko Satomura from Eve, which is incredible. But I remember like having Wrestle Kingdom on and watching it, but I was obviously like, as we do 2 screening at the time, so I hadn't really like absorbed it. And I remember just sitting going, no, I'm going to watch it. I properly absorbed this match. And I was like really crying at the end. And I like messaged her going like, and then I seen her and I was just like, you're good at the wrestle. So she was like, what? I was like, I watched this. And I told her, even though I thought this might seem weird that your bench pal's going, you're really good. But it's not. And I think making that weird is weird kind of thing. And like, I've told Viper, like, I've sat and watched your Japanese stuff and I think it's great. And you're really an inspiration. Like, you really inspired me to do this. And although we're really good friends, they were at my wedding in COVID times. We got married in October. Like, we got married during COVID. So it was a very small wedding, but they were there because they meant so much to us and our relationship. But it was a case of like, I don't want to be somebody that doesn't say, you did good, because you should tell people when they've done good, not just when they're doing bad.
No, 100%. Like, my pug was biting me, but no, I agree. That's amazing, and that's the way it should be. If you have, like, just check out my timeline on any given social media feed. I have friends that are podcasters, and I will share their crap out of their stuff because, much like they were my own. Because the thing is, they're my friends. I like good stuff. Some people that might listen and watch me might watch them, and that would be cool. So at the end of the day, when we get to, everybody has their own where they want to get to and how they mean to get there. But I want as many people to be at that like echelon where I'm looking over and I'm like, hey, you're here too. Like, I got here, you're here too. This is great, whatever. Not because like I want anything, not because whatever. Like, I'm like, everybody's good start a podcast. If this is your thing to do, nobody's. I mean, like, most of the world is locked down anyway. You're probably not going to get no, and let's just do it and find out about more of each other and like just. I mean, be there for each other, like in open, because I don't know.
Because when people say you be nice to everybody on the way up, because it's a lot harder if nobody likes you on the way down. And it's just that case of like, again, it's that case where I say like, to me, I've never been a jealous person in anything, relationships or anything. Like, I've just never been like. I remember I was like laughing because Wolfie drives down to like the PC with Kaylee and Viper. And I remember there was a time where we were clearing out wardrobes here and I had filled his car with black bags. And I went, oh God, it looks like I've thrown him out because his car's full of black bags and he's drove away with 2 other women. Like, and it was just that, but luckily, like, it was that sort of look of it. And I was like, but us, it's just, like, I've never had that in me. I've just never had that jealousy. It's always been a case of, if I'm with someone, it's because I trust them, so I just need to behave. Everybody needs to behave. But it's a game of wrestling. Like, I like being in a room with people and looking around and thinking, yeah, all these people have worked hard to be here. And it's when you're on that sort of echelon, you're like, oh yeah, like, and it's also the fact that when you're looking around a room and everybody in your room around you is very talented, and you're in the same room, it's not like, oh, I think they're good, but I'm here. Does that mean I'm good? Well, then I'm all right. Like, it's that kind of thing as well. You got to look at it that way. And it's the same. Like, I've shared rooms. Like, I think I don't know if it was our debut in singles, but Tonga, when I last in the program, I was definitely our debut in Future Shock. And it was a total last minute thing. And she did great. For her first match, she did incredible. You know, when you just sort of have that, this is your first like match probably out Revo stuff, and you've impressed me, who's done this for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You're gonna do pretty well if you keep on the right track. But yeah, it's the same idea of like if you know someone who's doing well, just tell them well done. Like if you think if you look at them and go, you've worked hard enough to get there. So, well done, chuffed for you, good.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think you're a dick.
Yeah. No. But that's the thing. It's just the prosperity of everyone, and I love it. Which Mike Angus says, looking forward to the She Wolves returning to TNT, as we all are, good sir.
Yeah, that's Angus trying to protect himself from us.
Ooh.
He's the ring announcer for TNT.
Ooh, shout out to Mike.
He's just making sure that we don't go for him.
Yeah, if you have an ulterior motive, then yeah, man, not to be able to get your arse kicked, that's cool. I like that. That's why I do this. Like fighters and pro wrestlers, they do that thing. I do this thing. Yeah, so yeah. And James Wheeler wants to know, what is your take? And we've touched on it briefly, but what is your take, especially as somebody who's Scottish that didn't have too much of a Scottish representation in the bigger leagues? What's your take on Nikki Cross and Drew McIntyre?
I mean, they're both incredibly hard workers. Like I got to work with both of them in ICW. I was there when Nikki got dragged out of the Barrowlands kicking and screaming. And yeah, but like Drew was the hope. You know what I mean? Like he is the most driven and humble man I have ever met in my life. He is just he's a big nerd. He's a big dweeb, but he is ours. And he loves wrestling. Like he knew where he was going. He knew what his plan was. He didn't pity himself when he got fired. He knew what was happening. He just knew. And the reason why he ended up in ICW, we were his first place back.
Yeah.
Because Mark Dallas was the one place that didn't send him a message. Didn't ask him, because he was like, mate, you've just lost your job. You need a few minutes to breathe before we start talking about indie bookings. And Drew was like, why do you not try it? And he was like, I thought you just need. And he was like, I did, but it kind of. And I was like, okay, but like Drew made it possible for a country where it wasn't possible. Like, if you think about it, our representation was Rowdy Roddy Piper, and he's Canadian.
Yeah, 100%.
We all love him.
Yeah.
Like, I love Piper.
Yeah.
He wasn't Scottish. His granddad was Scottish. His granddad was from Glasgow. He was for the Gorbals.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't Scottish. So for somebody Scottish going over, that was big. But there was a long period of time, I think, where we kind of thought, right, they've got their Scottish person. We just need to get on with everything else. Because we were so used to it being like, right, they've got their token this, they've got their token that, they've got that, right, okay. Like, for a while, you think about it, there was Drew, Sheamus, and Wade Barrett. And you were like, there's the token UK. And then they had...
Which one?
Big guy.
Ron Simmons. The what's his name? Ezekiel Jackson, is that?
He was a gladiator. He's on this TV show Gladiators.
Oh, not Aldous. You're not talking about Aldous, right? No.
Same show, exact same show.
Okay.
Huge bad guy, but he was Welsh. So
okay.
Rob
Terry.
Maybe no. Is that his indie name?
No, wasn't he in TNA? Maybe I'm.
I'll remember. Somebody will remember and be like,
yes.
Aye. But yeah, so it felt like, so they've got their token X, Y, and Z. So everybody else got on with it. But we started ICW started making its own noise with people like Nikki Cross, who is again somebody so driven and constantly just thinking about things and where things should go and stuff. And like they're both incredibly hardworking and 100% deserve where they should be. But yeah, like Drew's just. I think I was like, although like I knew Nicky and I was giving Nicky, I got closer to Drew because he was around for a bit longer. Mason Ryan.
Mason Ryan, there you go. Which is Rob Terry, but Welsh. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, but
Thank you, David. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. But Drew he just knew, and the thing with Drew was Drew wanted to elevate everybody up. That was his whole thing. It wasn't just, he knew that it wasn't just about him. He knew where he wanted to go. He knew he was focused on where he was going, but he also knew that he needed for your car, you need a good mechanic, you need somebody to put petrol in, you need somebody to drive the back, you need somebody to take a shot sometimes. And he knew that, and he knew he could bring the UK up with him, and he worked everywhere. He was the number one professional wrestler in the world at one point, independently. Because I remember there was like 1 week where he started with us on the Sunday, he then left and went to like Belgium. Like he went, I remember him going, he went, here, he did 2 dates in mainland Europe. He went to Australia. He then came back, wrestled Matt Hardy in New York, and then flew back to Glasgow. He literally did a loop of the world in like a week.
Oh,
and it
Jesus.
was mad. And when he showed back up the following Sunday, he was just like, so tired. I'm so tired. And I was like, okay, go to sleep. Go for a sleep. But he was just so hard working. He wanted to go everywhere. He wanted to make sure. He made the ICW championship a world heavyweight championship because he took it around the world. It's a pure nitpick for me because what we are taught in the UK is that a world championship is officially a world championship when it is defended in 5 countries and 3 continents. 5 countries, 3 continents, right? That's a world championship. ICW's both men and women are world championships because they were defended in at least, and they've done more, 5 countries, 3 continents.
Yeah. No, 100%. Oh, I love that you did that. But I mean, Drew's a legend, absolutely. Mason Ryan, and then Welsh Batista, yeah. Which, that's a nitpicky for me too, because like I have friends that will, win championship, and this is a world championship, and I'm all like, here's the deal. And I thought about doing a video on it, but I'm all like, for me, my 2 definitions: A, if it's defended around the world, 1, and then if there's people from other parts of the world that come to said place to battle for said title, that is a world, because those are mine. I mean, it's debatable. It's debatable,
But I don't know if it's a UK thing, but that was something I was taught. A world championship means it's been defended in at least 5 countries and the 3 continent bits, the harder bit. Because in Europe it's easy because you just France, Spain, it's hot. Like you can do that, but the 3 continents. So the guys one has been defended in obviously Europe, US. I want to say, I think it was South America. I think it was Mexico. I think it was South. Where is it? Australia. The other place was Australia.
Yeah.
Like there was the 3 official ones. So it was America, Europe, Australia, and the women's was America, Europe, and Japan. So that was the women's one. So that's the content. You know what I mean? That's the areas. And then it's still, but the countries just keep getting added. So you win it, and then you can now go, hey, I can bring this to Germany. I can bring this to. So now we're adding everything. If we get someplace else, we'll go. But yeah, it's that kind of way where we were very much in the case of we are making these.
Yeah.
And when you go, no, this is what a world championship is because it's been defended. Yeah. And for me. Yeah, there's some major places where I'm just like, just put the title on somebody that you know is going to go away, can do a couple of shows and come back. Yeah. Just let them go. If your company's big enough, and you know what I mean, like, if your company's got a big enough name, then somebody will let you. Hey, do you want so-and-so? Like, Kim defended it, like Viper defended it in America against Taya Valkyrie.
Oh yeah, Taya, yeah.
Like, that was the American defense, and Drew's was Matt Hardy in America. But it's that case where the show that they were on, the fact they were like, we have the ICW, we want to defend it so that it makes it. They were like, yeah, bring it on. Like, that's fine. I can wrestle. So if your name's big enough, then I can't see why people would disparage and help. Like, I think if I had a promotion, I'd be trying to actively like go, right, okay, well, you bring your title over to me, and I'll bring my title over to you. And there's certain places that you can't argue that the titles, although you might be like, the titles have been defended. So, like, the Impact titles have been defended worldwide, and you know what I mean. The Japanese titles have been, like, the New Japan titles and the Stardom titles have all been defended worldwide.
Right. Yeah.
They deliberately, like, Stardom's deliberately put the title on Gaijin so that they go away and come back. Mm-hmm. And they go away and come back and they go, world title. Yeah, it's a wee nitpicky for me too.
No, I love it. And Neil says ICW full of so many great talents, but there's so many. And just that definition of the world title, that's one of the reasons why I love British wrestling. I love UK wrestling. You guys do it so well. And I mean, that's why, us here go over there. Japan goes over there. The first time like Okada defended his IWGP title was like at a show. I think it was like RevPro or whatever. That's what you do, and you guys do it so well. And so my goodness, Molly, I absolutely love the fact that you were here. I absolutely love you for doing this, my sister. This is amazing. Now, for those to get all of the amazing, wait, I got one more, because you are by definition described as horrible yet entertaining. So what happened to get you such a dubious title?
Do you actually like? This is hand on heart. This is true. The person who said that I was that and described me as that, and I have told them I'm going to put this on the t-shirt one day, was the 2021 Royal Rumble winner, Edge. And it's because so there's a place in Dublin which is called Offbeat Donuts, right?
Okay.
Loves Offbeat Donuts. We did a tour with them. Edge is my boy. Like, he was my poster boy. Like, he's just love him. So when with Inside the Ropes, I genuinely believe Kenny McIntosh booked Edge purely to see me squirm. He thought it'll be a good tour, but it was mainly to see me going, like, and for 2 days I kept trying to be cool, but like I'd be like, I tried to like pretend to fall out with Edge one day, but my face didn't work. Like, so the ones that were coming out was, so he came in and stole a donut, and I was pretending to be raging, but I was like, so you stole my donut, yeah? I couldn't, my face couldn't stop smiling. Like, I was so happy he was there. And I think a few days before, but then like eventually, like Edge is such a sound guy. Like, he's so nice, and I'm so happy. Everybody that I've met who've like been increments, like for like, so like when we did the tour with Goldberg was really nice. And I was like, although like he's not my favourite wrestler in the world, he was the screaming face in the television. You know what I mean? So it meant, please be nice, please be nice. He was nice. And then Edge was just a diamond. But he's just so lovely. But he likes these donuts. And we did a tour. We did a tour and we ended up in Ireland again. And across the road was Offbeat Donuts. And I went over and I said I filmed a video, and remember like on Instagram there was that like a screen that was like and then it was hearts.
Yes.
So I did that, and I sent this like heart filled like on these donuts, and I sent it to her, And I was like, guess what I'm eating? And this was on a different tour. And he replied back, you horrible yet entertaining vixen. And I was like, I am using that on a t-shirt. So yeah, that is that. The title was dubbed to me by Edge, who is my favorite wrestler. But don't tell him that. I
No.
genuinely thought in the end it was like I had like my figures on this tour, and I was like, people might be lying and saying that you're my favorite wrestler, but I've got these, so do you mind signing them? And he was like, people have told me that I'm your favorite wrestler. I was like, it's lies. He also one day we'd gone and got him, because he'd been so nice, we went and got him like little presents, and we got like the kids like Scottish like wee storybooks and things like that to take back, and we got like Beth a scarf and etc. And he was like, oh, that's wonderful. And he started playing with his phone, and he started talking to somebody. He went, say hi. And he passed me the phone, and it was Beth Phoenix. And I was just like, ah, hello. I was like, hey, she was like, oh, you're the one. I was like, yeah, that's me. And I'm like, hi, dude. But he's just one of those. But he's also such a hardworking guy, lovely human being, has such a sound head like on his shoulders, but also like although like I've not done it yet, and I am terrified to do so, but I know one day I will send him a link to a match and go, can you give me feedback? And he would do it. I feel like he would do it. He's one of those people that just want to help. And I know he's done it for Wolfie, who said like, hey, when they were doing like the ladder match for Blackpool, he messaged him going like, have you got any advice? And he replied, and he's one of those people that genuinely cares about the business, that he wants to help other people too. Yeah. So that's why. Also, I'm just going to clarify, Edge is not a part-timer. Edge and Daniel Bryan have the same story. They were both made to retire when they didn't want to, and they fought to get back. They were both put on the shelf, and now they're back. They're not part-timers. So if anybody wants to argue with me, come at me, and I'll prove you wrong and make you feel foolish.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Not me. I fucking love it. I absolutely do. Yes, Steve Tatum goes, LMAO. Neil Hutton just laughing over here. That's awesome. Actually brilliant. And Kelly Robinson says her screensaver for a while was a pic of Wolfie and Edge. Now, again, for those keeping count, those keeping score, again, Wolfie she's married to, Wolfgang, part of Gallus, part of NXT UK Tag Champs, and then the other is Beth Phoenix's husband. So just for you guys keeping score.
Yeah, like it's like, yeah. So this was a picture of Wolfie and Edge, which was at his first time when he was working Access.
Yeah.
So I met him, but he got a photo and then sent me the photo, and I was like, I'm very glad I have this photo. It's my perfect screensaver, but I am so angry that I didn't get to meet him. But then I was like, it's fine. I'll meet him when I work with him. And then I did. And then we follow each other on Twitter. And genuinely, when he did his return, I sent him so Wednesday the Ropes, we do a tombola every year, and we put in money and whoever to win someday at the Royal Rumble. And the two people I had the year that Edge came back was Edge and Drew, which were a perfect number, 16 and 21. Still remember them. And I remember messaging him and going like, God damn it, I had you in the Rumble and you screwed it up. I'm out of pocket. And then I went, but it's okay, I had Drew too. So, wait. And then I was like in a way when he was just like, haha. And he genuinely replies, he's just a very good person. And so is Beth. They're a good couple.
I love that. I absolutely love it. And Kelly saying, yeah, WrestleMania 33 is when that picture happened, you know? So, Molly, I got to ask, right? I mean, for those who want to get a glimmer of somebody who is, yes, in the words of the Rated R superstar, horrible yet entertaining vixen, if they want more of you, especially on social media, to kind of be like, again, the WrestleMania headliner, the 2021 Royal Rumble winner, Edge, the rated R superstar. Where can they follow you on social media?
Basically, I am Molly Spartan. So I usually tell people just Google Molly Spartan and you'll find everything. I'm Molly Spartan on Twitter, Molly Spartan on Instagram, Molly Spartan on TikTok, Molly Spartan pretty much everywhere. I think the only one I'm not is Facebook. I think I'm real Molly Spartan there. But if you Google it, I come up. So you kind of can't miss me. So I mean, you can follow me everywhere, but if you want to see me, I work for TNT, but most recently I am just featured on the WWE Network. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I
Like you might get it on your PlayStation. WWE Network for ICW Fight Club. I'm on there. And they've recently just announced that they're going to have, in 4 weeks' time, some cage matches. And I heard that I just need to ask. So you might take them up on that. I might just... I've got a little issue with... Not an issue. I've got an issue with the company, but I'm currently taking it out on Angel Hayes. So yeah, maybe I'll look into that.
I definitely want to see you explore that venture because Molly Spartan belongs in a... Wait, that it's not going to sound right. I was going to say belongs in a steel cage. That's horrible. That's a human rights violation.
Some people would agree. My husband likes to call himself the king of the cage. Why can't I be the queen? Makes sense.
There you go. Why not? I'm not. Yeah, again, I do get no disagreements from me because again, you're a Spartan, I'm a Woods, and like Spartans like pillage the woods. So I'm just saying that's
pillage pretty much everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Molly, you've been amazing. But also, everyone who has commented and liked, shared, and subscribed to this very podcast have also been amazing. You guys are the real MVPs. Ballin'. So, be like Molly Spartan. I mean, Molly, you're subscribed to the podcast, right?
Yeah. I'm subscribed to the podcast. Follow you on the Twitter. Follow you on the Instagram. Even when you post up a day early, I still follow you.
Yeah. Shout out to Inglewood High School and my education. That my parents brought me. So I'm just saying. But Molly, you have been absolutely lovely. Thank you guys. And again, if you haven't already done the whole subscribe to the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter versions of this podcast, do so now because Molly has, as well as others. But if you don't believe us to, and I don't know why you wouldn't, well, here's another pro wrestler to convince you, Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe